not
Keep them safe.
hesitant to just make decisions, which is really nice too.
Yeah.
Especially when, you know, you're in those positions, you have to be able to make those decisions. So.
Yeah, he's just a good dude.
Oh, we got more people.
We are
Yeah.
at quorum.
Okay, let's go ahead and start. Welcome to our February Police Commission meeting. I'd like to begin by, saying that, February is, we recognize February as Black History Month. But I'm going to add that as a 10th generation Black American, I like to say that Black history is American history. And I would prefer that we could celebrate it on a 12-month basis, not restricted to recognizing the accomplishments of many of my ancestors to 1 month. So I just want to bring that up for attention. Please, everyone, review the agenda. If you have any changes and so forth, I'm going to move on to our previous meeting recap. And then I'll get back to if you have changes on the while you review. It gives you time to look at the agenda while I'm going over a recap of our last meeting. On the last meeting that we had, we continued review of policy 1210, public safety cameras. Second thing we did was presentation on recruitment, retention, promotion, development, DEI. The third thing that we did was we honored Commissioner V. Nguyen for his service to the Police Commission. And those are the things that we did. And then fourth, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page that per our bylaws, in reading those, we have to report any absences that we might have had. So last month, Commissioner, let's see here, Parham was absent, and tonight we'll be without not Counselor Zelenka will not be here, and Commissioner Mogart will not be here tonight. So that's just something that we're going to start doing henceforward. Just for the record, just reporting on who's was not in attendance for a meeting. And looking at the let's see here. Has everyone gotten a chance to review the minutes? Do we have any changes to the minutes, or anyone see anything that needs to be corrected?
Chair Boggs.
Yes. Commissioner Hawkins?
Currently, there's 3 minutes devoted to law enforcement, mental health, and wellness subcommittee update. I think that our time providing an update and some discussion following that will probably take longer than that. I do notice, however, that our agenda has us actually ending our meeting around 7:33. So I don't know if I need to make a formal motion to extend the section for the mental health and wellness subcommittee, or if we just go with the
How much time do you think you need?
I'm going to say at least 10 minutes.
Okay, approved by me. So you can do
Thank
the
you.
10 minutes. That's fine. That's fine.
Thank you.
We'll figure it out. Does anyone else have any changes to the minutes? Or if not, I'm going to need to have someone make a motion to approve the minutes. Commissioner Dominguez?
I'm just curious if the discussion on recruitment and retention is enough time, like 35 minutes? I don't know. Seems like that's something that we might end up talking a lot about. But is that something we could just extend later?
If we need to extend it later, we would, but no, that's fine.
Okay, never mind. Forget it. Thanks.
So, Commissioner Lemon, did you want to make a motion to
Yes, with the flexibility in the agenda, I would like to make a motion to approve last month's minutes and today's agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Councilor Ye. Councilor Ye has seconded. So we're going to move on to, oh yes, thank you. Thank you. So I would like to make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Just wanted to vote.
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Motions, both have been approved. We're gonna go into liaison reports with Commissioner Lemons.
Thank you, Chair. So the Human Rights Commission was briefed on, sorry about that, was briefed on 3 incidents, all happening right at the end of 2023 or before. So none of this is from 2024. The most complicated of the 3 was on the 1st of November. And this is an incident between 3 middle schoolers and 2 high schoolers that had a physical fight that might have a bias incident or a bias like motive involved. But it is, you're getting very much in the weeds, you know. So EPD has interviewed adults. There was a physical fight, but there was no injury. This is a situation that has been progressing. So it is open and assigned at this point, but it seems to be hard to like get to an answer to. The second one is an ongoing interpersonal conflict with a local, more involved with property damage. The police were summoned back. It's been a multiple thing issue. So police were summoned back after a month, and they found anti-Caucasian language, and it looks like this one actually the person pleaded guilty to criminal mischief, stalking, and a bias crime. And the third one is still open and assigned, and it's a recent graffiti that has homosexual slurs, and that would be classified probably as a bias incident. I'm gonna hold my commissioner comments until the end. So thank you.
Thank you. Is Commissioner Judge Lehman here? Okay. Counselor Ye?
I don't know how many.
Commissioner Dominguez?
For my comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Update, Beatrice and I have set up some meetings to present to the Hispanic community to help them understand what the Department of Justice can provide and how the police auditor works and just some basic. I don't think the community really needs all that much about the police commission, but mostly those other 2 resources. So I'm excited about that. We're going to do that on the 23rd and also on March 4th. With that being said, I am very, very sad, but due to conditions out of my control, I can't be a police commissioner anymore because I have to move. I am moving on I'll be done moving March 1st, so I'm very upset, but anyway. And, oh, I didn't realize I was gonna get sad. Okay, well, whatever, okay. I guess I'm sad because I've been interviewing some people about what's going on at EPD, and I wanted to investigate more about women and what they're going through over there. And what I heard made me very upset, and I am very upset that I have to leave right now based off of what I heard. There is a lot that needs to happen, and I'm sorry that I can't follow through on it. So I wish that I could complete my term, but I can't. So also with that, I can't represent the police commission on the 4th, or excuse me, on the meeting for the 4th. So I guess I just won't say I'm a police commissioner anymore, but I will tell people what the police commission does with the Hispanic community. I apologize for crying. I didn't know I was going to do that. So thanks. That's all.
Before I go to Commissioner Booker, that's not good news to me as the chair. You and I believe, came on around the same time. Your energy and so forth, I thought complimented me to the point where I had made you a vice chair of this commission, and we worked well together. Our 20, 30 years apart, I thought was very, very refreshing because you brought a lot of stuff that maybe I would have never even thought about, as well as we worked many a times Alden Baker Park, representing the commission and so forth. So I know that whatever you're going to do well. And there's people who love you, who know many of the things that are important to you, and I'll guarantee you they'll continue your thoughts and concerns. And remember, we're just a phone call away. There's in 2024, you can always call us. What's going on? How can I help? How can I contribute? But you have made your mark, so you can lift your head high. Keep your head high. You don't have to cry because you are a strong commissioner, and I'm proud. And you did a great service to the Hispanic community in the time that you've been here. So thank you. That's from me right this second.
It's also okay to cry, just saying.
There you go. Commissioner Booker.
Wow, I'm saddened by that, Commissioner Dominguez. Never be afraid to show your emotions. You are a strong leader, and I really appreciate you being on the commission. You was one of the ones that voted me in, so thank you for everything that you do, and I hope to continue to be able to push forward whatever is on your mind that's been bothering you. So hopefully I'll be able to talk to you before you leave. But whatever it is that you're going through or you feel, I'll carry that baton for you once you leave. But thank you for everything that you've done. So switch gears a little bit. Thank you for everybody for being here. I just have a question. The recruitment PowerPoint, was it ever sent out? Because I don't remember getting it.
No, it has not been sent out. And in the agenda item summary in our packet, the reason for that is that it's under review for to see if we can release that to the public because it's an internal document. So right now it's being reviewed by the city attorney's office. So please stay tuned.
Okay, enough
I
said.
think when we address this agenda item a little bit later in our meeting, Chief Skinner has some information he can share with you about that.
Okay.
I'm not sure we're talking about the same thing.
No.
Quite honestly, like you said, PowerPoint. I don't know what PowerPoint.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant, okay, sorry.
No, there was last meeting we had, there was a recruitment PowerPoint.
Yes. Yes, you're right. You're correct. I'm sorry. Yes. And I did try to send that, but it's so large that it wasn't going to be able to go through. So I need to work with our ISD staff to see if we can get that to you.
What is that app? I forgot. There's an app that I use to put all my stuff in. So you can put large files. I forgot the name of it.
Well, if you can remember,
Or if you just save it
send
to a
that me.
PDF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you said, yeah, a PDF. Well, it was a video included in the PowerPoint.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dropbox. That's what it is. Dropbox. I can pass you my Dropbox and we can link it up that way.
Thank you.
I think that was it. I'm gonna miss you, Commissioner Dominguez. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. I was so motivated tonight, and then I'm just kind of made me a little sad myself. So I'm gonna miss you. So thank you for letting us know.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Shivers? Absent. Okay. Commissioner Parham?
Yes, thank you. When things go bad, good people leave, eventually followed by people who thought they could change things, but got buried because too many good people left. Those left are bad people or hostages. The good people are your canary. The quote I just read to you is from a tweet that Brian P. Hogan shared in 2018 regarding his employment at a toxic employer. I was made aware of this quote by an email that was sent by 2021 Officer of the Year and ex-EPD officer, Kristen Cardwell. Officer Cardwell made a move to the Springfield Police Department. Officer Cardwell alleges that this move was made because of a toxic culture of sexism and sexual harassment, and a toxic workplace that tolerates poor behavior and does not protect or support them. These are serious allegations, one the department should not take lightly. According to Officer Cardwell, we've lost 6 female officers in the last 6 months, with some of these officers going on to take higher positions in Springfield. If a culture of toxic sexual harassment and dead-end careers exists for the current femme employees of EPD, I task the City Council with establishing an outside auditing firm to come in and investigate these claims. In 2021, a community activist by the name of J. St. James alleged that she was stalked and sexually assaulted by now former police officer Christopher Drummond. She claimed that she was arrested and harassed by members of EPD. While Officer Drummond is no longer on the force, my question is, are the officers that participated in the harassment campaign and arrest of St. James still on the force? Last year, a group of several women alleged that a community leader had been using their church as a place to find victims. One of those survivors had gone to the police in 2021 regarding an alleged rape and filed for a temporary restraining order against that community leader. When these survivors went to the police again last year, they were once again turned away and discouraged from continuing to contact the police regarding the alleged abuses. I bring this up to share that the department's track record in the press around perceived culture around sexual violence hasn't been the best. And if the environment that Officer Cardwell describes exists, then how many survivors have been turned away? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Commissioner Hawkins, and you will do your comments and then follow into law enforcement, mental health, and wellness subcommittee update.
Well, I wasn't going to do a commissioner's comment, but now I have to because of Commissioner Dominguez. And Commissioner Dominguez, I have to say that I have told just about everybody on the commission that you are exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up. You are passionate, you are fiery, you have not let everything in the world and all the shoulds and what people are expected to conform to, you have not let that put out your fire. And I admire that and I respect that in you. And I have to admit, I'm a little bit jealous because I feel many times that I am conforming a lot more than what I believed I would when I first started college. So you're an inspiration to me as well as everyone else on the police commission as a commissioner, as a woman, as a young woman of color. You are absolutely fantastic. And losing you is going to be a huge loss for the police commission. So I wanted to throw that out there. Chair Boggs, I'll go into the update for the law enforcement, mental health, and wellness. First of all, I wanted to give my thanks to Holly for securing us a minutes recorder. It has been fantastic having somebody else to take notes to make those available for the rest of the commission and to keep us in line with the bylaws and the rules that we need to follow as far as calling out who's present, who makes a motion, who seconds it. Trinae has been absolutely fantastic for that. So thank you, Holly, for making that happen for us. I also wanted to extend thanks to Chief Skinner, who has attended our last 2 meetings in a row. I know he's got many, many, many other things to do, but the fact that he has dedicated his attention to this committee's efforts and has responded with gravity and respect does not go unnoticed. So thank you very much, Chief, for doing that. The next item on my list, as we all on the commission have been aware, is Officer Cardwell's email. It's been a very tricky line to walk because as the police commission, we're not a human resources body. We're not an internal affairs investigation. We're not Leah Pitcher. We're not the auditors. And it's been very difficult trying to find out where our hearts for an officer who has served our community with such passion and dedication, how we want to support her, how we want to represent our community, and the respect, of course, that we already do have for Eugene Police Department. It's been difficult trying to find where we fit into that. With that being said, I will say that her email and the scenarios that she described in it, I feel very strongly, and have been supported by the other members of the subcommittee, that those do fall very much within the purview of the Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Committee. So as a commission, we may not be able to get very granular into what Officer Cardwell has brought up. As a committee, I think that it is within our focus. And so we as a committee have no intention on letting that slide or disappear. And so that's our pledge to Officer Cardwell and to you, Commissioner Dominguez. I know Chief Skinner will address that later. So the next item that I wanted to bring up, and it's nice that we are going to segue directly into Chief after that. I'm going to share my screen because I wanted to bring to the Commission's attention. We have on my screen is Senate Bill 111, Oregon Senate Bill 111. The highlighted section essentially states that after an officer is involved in a critical incident, there is a requirement of that officer undergoing a mental health evaluation or having the opportunity to attend at least 2 sessions with a mental health professional within 6 months after the incident in which the officer was involved. There's been a lot of discussion within the committee as far as defining a critical incident. Our go-to is always going to be an officer-involved shooting. However, it's come to our attention that there are many other scenarios that fit that bill, and obviously most of us aren't necessarily qualified to define those. So we are calling upon Chief Skinner and EPD to try to help us form more of an understanding of what a critical incident is and how EPD responds to those. The other thing is that it's not, according to Senate Bill 111, it's not substituted for a fitness for duty examination. So then another thing that I wanted to bring to the Commission's attention is Policy 810, and this is EPD's policy, which is absolutely in alignment with the Senate Bill 111. There is 6 months and an officer is given a minimum of 2 opportunities for mental health counseling. What we have discovered, and Chief Skinner, please absolutely correct me if I'm misstating anything at all. What has come across in our discovery and our conversation with the chief is that there is not necessarily a requirement for an officer who is involved in a critical incident to undergo an evaluation to declare them able to return to duty in their regular post at any point prior to that 6-month period. So in layman's terms, what that means to me is that an officer could be involved in a critical incident, and after the 3 months or the 3 days mandatory leave, they could actually be sent back to the streets with a weapon without having been cleared by a mental health professional. So at that point, the committee has voted unanimously to bring this to the attention of the Commission. We are, of course, in favor of working with EPD to make sure that there is a policy in place for EPD as far as a treatment and evaluation, what is required for having an officer return to their post, not necessarily in a light duty situation where they're at a desk taking calls, but actually out on the streets with a weapon dealing with the public. And my committee members, do you have anything else to add to that before we turn it over to the chief?
No, you were spot on with that. For as us diving more into critical incidents, because I'm totally in agreement that a lot of the things stated in the email will fall under a critical incident, as well as any kind of racial incident that might happen on duty or off duty by a sworn officer of the law. So I totally agree 100% everything you said, and look forward to deep diving more into this. Hopefully, as a commission, we can set forth policy that would outline and protect the good officers.
And just super quickly.
Commissioner Lemon?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just super quickly, from my observations, granted, it was an 8 a.m. morning, so I'm not fully on top of my game at 8 a.m., but defining, and this is going to come, I imagine, to the police commission, but defining in policy what is a critical incident and what is not, I think is going to be the crux of what we're working on this particular item. So just wanted to put that out there. And thank you, Vice Chair Hawkins, for doing such an amazing job with it.
Yes, yes. Thank you for taking the lead, and thank you as a group, all those working together for y'all doing the work that you've done. We're going to move along. We're at the chief's report, and then he will go right into discussion on recruitment and retention, DEI. From there.
Thanks. Thanks, Chair. So a couple of comments just from the chief's perspective. And I'll keep this short and sweet so that we can spend some more time on the other topic. And just so that you know, I didn't come to the meeting prepared to carry the conversation about recruitment and retention. I came here as a resource to certainly answer some questions, provide some context if it's appropriate, but I don't have like a formal presentation on this, as you can imagine. So a couple comments about what's going on. Hiring is going well in the sense that we're bringing on at the end of this month, we're bringing on, I think, 5 or 6 new officers. I'm headed to the academy tomorrow for dispatcher graduation. That's super exciting. We have more dispatchers showing up. Next Tuesday, we have a promotional process where we have 3 captains in process to do interviews next week. And so I'm hopeful that we're able to promote a couple of captains. We've got some both internal and external candidates for that. And so there's a lot of personnel changes happening. And what'll be interesting is, depending on what we decide, I guess what I decide around captains, if internal candidates are successful, then that certainly creates opportunity at lieutenant level. And again, if there's internal candidates successful for lieutenant, it creates opportunity at sergeant. And it's always an exciting time when there's leadership opportunities within the organization for people to take advantage of. And so more to come on that downstream this spring with those other selection processes that way. As you can imagine, well, maybe you don't imagine, so I'll just tell you, I'm up to my eyeballs with the legislative short session, specifically about Measure 110 and about Measure 110 reform and what that means for this short 35-day legislative session. I've got lots of kind of crystal ball ideas of where I think that's going to land, but heavily involved in that. Eugene is one of a couple of classic epicenters of the outcomes of decriminalized hard and dangerous drugs and the pervasive amount of use that we see in our community. And so I get drawn into that conversation and certainly have my thoughts from a chief's perspective. And of course, I've got my own personal thoughts on this. And so we'll be continuing to work on that. A lot of testimony will happen over the next 30 days at the legislature, and a lot of meeting with legislators one-on-one, talking a little bit about our experience here in Eugene. But ballot measure 110 will be an interesting nuance as it gets reformed on how that looks here in Eugene, not only for the Eugene Police Department, but for the system, the criminal justice system, to include courts, specialty courts, and of course the much needed treatment and detox options that are not there, which is unfortunate that the state of Oregon ranks either 49th or 50th in the country in treatment accessibility for people suffering from substance abuse disorder. So that's something we need to fix. Lastly, I'll just say big shout out to this organization working so closely with our Jewish community on making a really good case and arrest to arrest the individual that defaced Temple Beth Israel during this really interesting time globally. And we know that hate sometimes operates in the shadows of our community. And in this particular case, we had the ability to shine a bright light on an individual that I think is a disciple of certainly Nazi doctrine and hate speech and a person of action, as demonstrated by the hammer in this individual's hand as he approached the synagogue on the night that we were able to capture him on video. Really good investigation done internally with Special Investigations Unit, coupled with help from the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office, and then of course our partners at Temple Beth Israel and the Jewish community. The surveillance equipment that they had at the synagogue was instrumental in us being able to identify who this person was. And so, while we hate the fact that we've had to throw resources at something like this, we hope we get to a point where we never have to. But in this event, just taking this as very seriously and being able to have a successful outcome feels good for a lot of people that were involved. And so just a lot of really good work all the way around. So that'll conclude my chief's comments, unless there's any questions about that. So I'll pause there and see if there's any questions about those comments.
Commissioner Parham?
Yeah, thank you. Chief, you had said in an interview that you don't like the person wouldn't have a costume unless they were going to a costume party. I guess kind of alluding to the fact that he possibly is not like acting alone, or am I misinterpreting you?
No, you're absolutely. I'm making that assumption. I get the liberty sometimes to make assumptions based on what we know or what the evidence suggests. The investigation and talking with him doesn't suggest that he's part of a large group. However, my 33 years of experience of doing this know that and knowing this community, we know that we have other people that subscribe to the same type of hate doctrine and Nazi culture. Whether he's loosely or tightly connected to that group, we don't know. But that's an assumption that I made, and we're constantly on the lookout for how we can connect those dots.
You're on freeze, I believe.
Yeah, and I think we lost Commissioner Parham.
Commissioner Lemon?
Thank you, Chair. So I'm certainly going to reserve questions and comments for the next part of the chief's report, but regarding what he just discussed about Measure 110, I would like to know, Chief Skinner, what is your perspective on where Measure 110 should go? Because you are the representative of EPD, and therefore that's what EPD is like lobbying for. And ultimately, where do you see it ending up?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I'll do is maybe send to the commission if you're interested. We when I say we as Association Chiefs of Police, so our statewide association has been heavily involved in this dialogue. We have crafted, along with support from the Oregon State Sheriff's Association, Oregon District Attorneys Association, and the League of Oregon Cities, kind of a 11 policy recommendations around ballot measure 110 reform. And there's a variety of things in there, Commissioner Lemons, everything from recriminalization of the possession all the way through mandatory treatment, expungement of charges, how we're spending the $300 million every biennium on services, how we can maybe spend that differently around treatment. And so there's 11 of those that we can send out. There is a fairly robust ballot measure that has been crafted that could show up on the ballot in November of 2024 with wide sweeping changes to ballot measure, original ballot measure 110. I think what we'll see as far as crystal ball, I think what we'll see is in a short session, I think we'll see the legislature take a stab at making a few adjustments to the existing ballot measure 110 language in an attempt to try and have the legislature actually control the reform efforts as opposed to a reform effort going to the voters. Polling suggests that as much as 78% of Oregonians are ready to completely reform this, if not repeal this. And I think going back to the way it was pre-110 is not the right answer. I think there are some reforms that need to be made. But the one thing I'll leave you with before I stop talking about this is that we as chiefs, and I as a chief of police in Eugene, are deeply committed to recognizing and wanting to make sure that the only way this works, and the only way this was going to work even when it was decriminalized, is if you have on-demand treatment for people to be able to access. Now, that's different than services, because we have a lot of services that don't necessarily treat the core of the addiction. We're talking about actually investing money on treatment of the substance abuse disorder. And so we're really very focused on not making this just a criminal justice issue, but making this an issue of treatment, and having a system that can catch these people that are not able to make really good decisions about their own wellness. So we'll see how this shapes out in the next 35 days. Probably by the time we meet next, I'll have even some more clarity on where I think this is going to land. And so I'm happy to report out on that when that time comes.
That'd be great. Thank you, Chief Skinner. But I would also appreciate you said 11 or 12 bullet points that you were. Would certainly appreciate Measure 110. I think is granted the voter spoke, but it comes with its problems, and I'm so happy to hear that EPD is not trying to go back to before what the voter spoke and trying to work within. So I look forward to reading those bullet points, and please reach out to me if you ever want to have a conversation about Measure 110, because I'm very.
Commissioner Parham?
Yeah.
No, Parham's hand.
I cut out, so I'm not sure if you touched on this or not, but I was curious if it's gonna go back to some type of like enforcement of possession or like public use. Is there a thinking that punishment or punitive angles will be towards like treatment, or would it still be someone like returning back to that, going back to jail system?
Yeah, I think honestly, what's up for debate right now, which will be interesting to see where we land, is I think the possession piece is going to end up getting recriminalized. I think that's a foregone conclusion. The question right now is whether it gets recriminalized at an A misdemeanor or a C misdemeanor. So I think we'll see that come out of this legislative session. And I think regardless of whether it's an A or a C misdemeanor, I think what you'll also see is the system will shepherd that individual through with the idea of pointing them through to specialty courts to be able to meet some criteria to include treatment that would allow for expungement of those charges upon the successful completion of treatment. I think there's going to be some focus on how we incentivize treatment for people. And I say all of this to say, I wish we had more treatment options, because it sounds like it could work if you have the treatment options. And much like when we passed this ballot measure a few years ago, I think the voters maybe didn't fully understand the lack of treatment options for people, and we're seeing that play out in living color now. So I think that's where it's probably headed, Commissioner Parham. But again, trying to predict a legislative session and where the legislators are is always a bit of a challenge.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dr. Booker?
Yes. I have a question for Chief, and then I have on the hiring, and then a question on Measure 11. First question is, going back to the hiring, you said, out of the 5 to 6 new officers, how many of them are male, female, and then how many of them identify as Black?
I'll go back and double check, just because I'd be giving you my best guess, because I see so many of them. I think there is a female in this group, and I don't think we have a Black officer, but I'm also really, really careful not to assume anything based on a name or skin color that sits in front of me when I interview them. So I can double check on that.
Then my second one is pertaining to hiring. You said you got 3 captain interviews. Out of those, how many are male and how many are female? And
they're all three men.
Do you not have any, and this is not questioning your choice, but do you have any females that were submitted?
No. And one of the nuances to that is in some cases, when you look at the history of our department, and it's hard, I would encourage you not to take a snapshot in time to be where we're at right now, because not too long ago, our deputy chief was female. We had a captain that was female. And so we have a tendency to kind of drift in and out of various states of diversity in a variety of our leadership positions. We've had a few females of leadership recently retire over the last couple of years. And the way, much like you maybe experienced in the military, the way our promotional process goes is there are certain criteria you have to meet, or positions that you hold that before you can be promoted to the next position. So we have, as we continue to be a really young organization, what'll be important for us is to fill the pipeline of leadership at sergeant and lieutenant level with a lot of really good choices, so that when we do select captains, that you have the people that are there that actually meet the minimum criteria, years of experience or experience at a certain rank. Every once in a while, we're able to jump that. Mostly, I think we did an officer to lieutenant once in Sean McGann, right? And then it feels like we, based on some military experience, actually, every once in a while, we're able to kind of jump a rung on that ladder. But oftentimes, your prior experiences and the amount of time you spent in those positions often better prepare you for the next position.
Gotcha. And yeah, in the military they do, but also they have Air Force instruction, which they put in place to make sure that a certain amount of females get promoted every cycle with the males. That's what the military implemented to make sure that there's a equal playing field in terms of female-male promotion. So they do have Air Force instruction in place to make sure that females are promoted at the same rate as male counterparts, just to piggyback on the military part.
Sure.
Then the measure 110, I don't feel like you should be carrying the weight of most of that on your shoulders, although it seems like you have been. So I'm going to pass this question to our councilwoman. Does the city council have any plans for more substance abuse programs to get ahead of the reform bill? And is the city council talking about funding for services and providing on-demand treatment for people, or is city council talking about investing in treatment?
Yeah, so at the city level, that's not within our purview. So we do give some funding through like Health and Human Services, but it's not, it's just, that's at a county level or a state level. So we don't do that. It's just not a city service.
Okay.
I guess we have tangential programs, like the library might have some program that's, geared towards a certain population, but it's not treatment. It would be some kind of tangential on the outside type program.
I asked this because I want to know what kind of leadership role city councils may be taking to work alongside EPD and getting ahead of this, knowing that this reform is coming in.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about at the legislative level, we do have staff that work with the legislature so that they understand the city's position and what we think is important. And we have staff that talk to them about certain bills and which one we think we like this one, or we have a problem with this one. So, there's opportunities for us to give our support, or sometimes we'll support the county in something that's important to them. We'll add our voice. So that's one way we can have an effect, but we don't provide those services. So, that's other people are taking the lead in that area.
All right, thank you. All right.
Commissioner Hawkins?
I have a question for Chief that has nothing to do with what we've already just talked about. I like to come at you from left field, Chief. I read an article about the traffic radar speed cameras, and apparently Eugene is one of the 10 cities in Oregon that is authorized to have those. And the article that I read projected that they'd be out sometime in the spring of 2024. Are you able to give us an idea of when or where this may be happening?
I missed the first part of that, Commissioner Hawkins. The traffic what?
The radar speed cameras.
I think maybe you're referring to red light cameras, not speed cameras.
Yes, several of the articles I read reference to them as speed cameras, but I think you're right, they are red light cameras.
Did they freeze?
I think so.
Your
Stand by if you can hear us.
Yeah, our internet connection is unstable.
go ahead, continue.
Sorry, we froze you.
Yeah, you guys are froze.
Lemon,
Yeah, you guys are still froze. Technology.
I'm catching everything, so I don't know where the technology glitch.
Bad now.
Oh, you guys are back.
Oh yeah, welcome back. There you go.
Okay.
All right, let's try this again.
okay,
Um,
we'll get back to Commissioner Hawkins. Go ahead, because for some reason there's been an internet disruption. You can begin now if you can.
Thank you, Chair. So the articles I read referred to speed cameras using photo radar. And
we have no
so
plan.
they may be red light cameras, but I was curious about how their rollout in Eugene.
We have no plans for a photo radar program in the city of Eugene that I'm aware of. And I certainly would be aware of that.
Nope.
Now, we have talked about some of our dangerous intersections, whether or not red light cameras would be appropriate for some of our intersections. And that would come mostly out of the traffic engineering. We would certainly shepherd the citation process through that. But I don't know if we have anything on our, no pun intended, on our radar screen to suggest that they're going to be implemented this calendar year at all.
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Yeah, I don't think there's nothing in the budget. There's nothing to suggest that's going to happen. But there has been some dialogue around our dangerous intersections and reducing crashes. It probably is in alignment with our Vision Zero type of initiative on whether or not we should be doing that, but nothing upcoming.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lemon?
Thank you, Chair. I guess I'm just coming up with comments at this point. I don't really have a question. So for City Council, and I appreciate you, Councilor Ye, for literally just telling it how it is. The city is not involved whatsoever in coordinating treatment or making sure that treatment exists within our city. But from my opinion and from my perspective working in health and human services, I think that's a dereliction of duty from the Eugene City Council and the Eugene City Manager. I sit on the digital equity panel, and we're sitting here proposing all of these, beautiful, great ideas. And on the last digital equity panel, they were like, okay, well, what community-based organization can take this on? I was like, absolutely not. Like, if I was the executive director, I would not take this on, like, whatsoever. So it's for the city to say that they are not going to be in the conversation, let alone trying to provide resources for treatment, and referring it off to the county or CBOs or some other organization is really frustrating. And I would really like to see that change. Honestly, the city has the purview to do whatever they want within the city bounds. And just with the digital equity panel, just the same thing as this. I mean, you all can do it if you want to. And then regarding, the red light cameras and stuff, and it aligning with Vision Zero. So first of all, I mean, you know how much against cameras I am, or as long as, well, anyways, I don't even know to explain it, but more in align with Vision Zero would not be red light cameras. It would be reimagining the streets so we would not need red light cameras. And I know that's not within our purview here, but I don't want Vision Zero to be seen as an enforcement plan. It is not. That is a vision for the future. So thank you for allowing me to hop in with a couple comments.
Yes. We have a response.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Lemons. And I understand where you're coming from. And I just want to, in keeping it real, as you said, I'm just going to share my own perspective on that. There's a million things we could do, right? Within the scope of the city, there are certain things that we have been tasked to do. And from my perspective as a city councilor, the things that I have been tasked to fund, I'm already unable to fund at a level that is appropriate, right? I can't fully fund our library. I can't fully fund our fire department. I can't fully fund our police department. I can't fully fund animal services. Like the list is on and on and on and on. If there's an area that has already been given to someone else and it is their responsibility to take the lead there, it feels responsible to focus on my priority issues. And then if I have money left over or I have capacity or a way to support them, then I'm going to do that. But I need to get my job done as well, right? So, but I totally get what you're saying. And I think the greater point that I think we can agree on is if an opportunity arrives to do something outside of your priorities, you should jump on it, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's county, state, city, we all have to work together and we all have the same problems, right? So looking for those opportunities, but realistically, we just have to not be the lead in that particular area. But yeah, I appreciate you being honest and saying what you think.
Yeah, no, and honestly, like hearing that breaks my heart. The city's always going to be underfunded. I know we had like some COVID cash that we flaunted around for a little bit, but we're always going to be making decisions about like what is more important than others. And every time I'm in downtown Eugene, so like downtown safety is on our agenda, all of these things, and they intersect so much. And so I just don't know why the city isn't stepping up. And they could honestly. I can't wait till I'm on city council or one of those times because adjust.
And that might and I hear you, and I hear you.
Yeah,
I guarantee you.
thank you, Jeff, for shutting me up. Appreciate you.
But those some of those questions might be something we will be speaking to the city council as a whole with, not part of us. That's a city council, not the Eugene Police Commission. So I hear you 100%. Now I'm not saying I disagree with you. But I'm just saying that that's not our solve. That's not our circus. That's not our thing.
No, I appreciate it. I should not have. I apologize.
Is there any more questions? We'll get us right back on point. Are there any more questions dealing with the recruitment and retention?
Let me launch into that.
No, yeah.
Let me just launch into that. That'll be a robust conversation. So,
correct.
And this is the way that I kind of phrased and presented this at our mental health and wellness subcommittee meeting on Tuesday morning. So the email from Kirsten Cardwell that prompted this very robust discussion, I'm not going to. Kirsten Cardwell has been a member of the EPD family and will always be a member of the EPD family, and so I'm not going to spend time talking about the email, what the finer points of the email is, and I'm not going to discuss that in an open public meeting. Kirsten has her experiences here, and I respect and appreciate her point of view on how she feels, because that definitely is real. What I can say is she had a horrible experience here at the hands of a male supervisor that was revealed to us, internally reported to us, and subsequently moved us to a fairly swift action and a lengthy investigation, and ultimately the termination of that employee. Not going to get into the details of that because there's still some ongoing stuff with that employee who felt like he should not have been terminated. But certainly she had a really bad experience here in that situation. I'm also sensitive to the fact that we have other female members of our organization, and you'll hear me talk about female employees because on this commission we have a tendency to really focus on our sworn members and our police officers. I'm the chief of 329 individuals, both sworn and professional staff, not just police officers. So when we think about experiences that our female employees are having, that's across the board in a variety of different assignments, both here at HQ and in other buildings across the city that are both sworn and professional staff. And we want to make sure that we approach this from a holistic perspective and wanting to make sure that we're creating culture of not only safety, physical safety, but psychological safety to be able to come to work, thrive at work, and feel like they're being heard. And we're working on some things internally to allow for our female voices to be heard, our female employees to be heard around recommendations on not only workplace culture, but training, development, a variety of things to better inform some decisions that we would make on constantly moving in the right direction around our culture, not only for our female employees, but for all of our employees here in the organization. We are constantly keeping track of kind of comings and goings. What I can say is that exit interviews are kind of haphazardly happening across the city. There's no structure, there's no formal guidance around exit interviews. Those are generally, if offered, voluntary by the person that is leaving. Sometimes they're offered, sometimes they're not offered. And so I think there's some work to do citywide there to clean that up, but that's an HR policy. That's not necessarily an EPD policy, because we certainly want to be consistent with what we're doing citywide. We're constantly trying to find new and creative ways to build as diverse a candidate pool as we can for both our professional staff and our sworn employees. And our candidate pools, as you can imagine, sometimes we have a tremendous amount of diversity or a really healthy amount of diversity, and then we'll have some candidate pools that don't feel very diverse. That's kind of a win-lose type of thing. We experience that in a variety of ways, both sworn and professional staff who are feeling really good. And then at the end of all of that process, you end up with what you end up. It's unfortunate, like this last process that we have one of our female candidates that's going to be joining us at the end of the month. If I've got we onboard like 5 or 6 times a year, so sometimes I blend them together. You know, we had 3 females in that candidate process that had gone to background, and 2 of the 3 females didn't make background for as a result of some truthfulness issues, to include a lot of men that were in that background. And so we lose people in our background process because we are so stringent about the backgrounds and not lowering our standards for individuals. And so there's some nuance to that as well. But we're constantly looking for creative ways to fill that candidate pool with the right people as it pertains to hiring. And then from there, as they're onboarded and they become a part of EPD, you know, we've got some work to do around building culture for sure. Every agency I've ever been a part of, there's been work to do about building culture. Culture's a journey. You never really seem to arrive at that destination. Culture is definitely a journey, especially for a larger organization. And so I'm mindful of that. I'm mindful of the experiences that many of our officers and professional staff have, both male and female, some of which I can identify with because have lived experience from those. Some of those experience I can't identify with because I've never had that lived experience. And so that's why it's so important for me to have these different, kind of infinity groups, or these groups to be able to help me understand what I'm never going to understand because I've never experienced it. The only thing I will share personally on a personal note is I'm married to a former Marine and police officer. So I've had some experiences through her eyes and what she's seen, both in the military and law enforcement. And so I'm sensitive to those things. And then the last thing I'll say is before I open it up for questions is, there's a story through all of this that I think is really, really important. And I think what has a tendency to kind of be on a collision course is a person's experience and emotions and the feelings around how they experienced EPD. And those are really, really valid. And we have employees that are struggling with that right now, that they're experiencing things that don't feel good. And we're trying to create space for that to be heard and understood and be able to improve and move forward. And then there's the other side of this, which is some people that want to really approach this from a more rational perspective. And they're like, okay, where's the data? Show me the data and to suggest certain things. And so we're trying to work understanding that sometimes answering an emotional question with just strict data doesn't always feel good. I'll use this as an example. In 2023, we lost 4 female officers total in 2023. 2 of those are in Springfield now, for sure. 1 has retired, and then 1 we lost during FTEP, I think. She decided that this just was not the job for her once she started getting into training. And so we do have some numbers to help us identify some trends, or if we're seeing some numbers that are really, really alarming. We do this in IAs. The auditor's office is really good about trend analysis and trying to bring to our attention some trending. And so we try to pay attention to that. What I can assure you is that there's not a meeting that we have around hiring that one of the, and especially candidate pool, that one of the first questions out of my mouth is, what's the makeup of the pool? To a person, they will tell you that that is the number one thing the chief leads with is, okay, tell me what the makeup of our candidate pool is. And so it is front of mind for me to try and make sure that we move forward. Last thing, I guess, said that was the last thing. I got one last thing I'm going to say. I know there was some questions around some specialty teams, and I do think there's actually some work to be done around selection on specialty teams. Policy 1015, which is in your purview to take a look at as policy recommenders. I think there's some work we can do around policy 1015 to identify some language that would more formalize how the makeup of certain boards and panels of selection to create some equity in and who's making the decisions on who is successful in specialty team assignments and who isn't. And I think there's some work that we can do there that will feel good to the organization. So let me stop there, because I know that you probably have a ton of questions, and some of which I'm probably happy to ask and answer. And if it's something that I just don't feel is appropriate to answer, I'll just be honest with you and let you know why.
Okay, we're going to start with Commissioner Dr. Booker.
I think one of the truest things you said is really it's hard to speak for someone else's experiences. So I have a couple of yes or no questions for 2 female officers that are at the table. Or is it 3? 2 or 3? 2. I can only see 2. Okay.
Well, you have 1 female officer. Well, you have 1 female officer and 1 retired sergeant who is.
Oh, so the retired officer does not work for the city at all?
She does work out of the chief's office, but technically would be considered retired, right? Yeah. And very happy to retire. So.
Well, then I have to go into too much explanation, but I have 2 questions. The first question, do you feel for the 2 female officers and retired officers, do you feel EPD is doing enough to support and promote female officers? You can just answer yes or no. You don't have to like go into detail.
That's not a question.
You guys don't have to.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Oh, or you don't have to answer it all.
I think yes or no questions are super difficult to answer. Just because I feel like there's so much context to provide to certain things too. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's only for me personally. I don't know how Sergeant feels.
Here's what I struggle with this, Dr. Booker, is that you asked an employee of mine who's sitting 8 feet away from her superior officer a question that's just not fair to ask her. Now,
if asking her how she feel, if she feels more, there's nothing being done. I mean, you said yourself you can't speak for a female. So me asking, does she feel that if the female officers are being promoted or treated, I don't feel like that's a
You're
bad
asking
thing.
somebody to criticize their boss in a
Time
public
out.
meeting, bro.
I'm not talking to you, Commissioner Shivers.
Yeah.
So keep
Commissioner Shivers, why don't we do Commissioner Shivers and all commissioners? We're going to speak during our time, and we're going to answer, and she's going to answer the best she can. So what she basically said was, what was your answer? It's not content.
I just think that there's so much more context than a yes or no answer would provide, to be honest. And I'm just trying to shoot it to you straight. Like there's just so much more than just a simple yes or no, or even a maybe. And I don't think we have the time for me to delve into all those details, which are also pretty personal. So I don't think it'd be appropriate to necessarily have it on a public forum. So I would hope that you would respect that a little bit too.
Yeah, and that's a fair answer, but I don't think that the environment should warrant some kind of hostility for me asking, does somebody feel something is fair, whether you're in front of your boss or not.
Oh, totally. Let me be clear. I am for sure one of those people that love to speak my mind. Absolutely. I have no problem, and I have before, telling the chief when I think he's wrong. So I don't think that's necessarily the issue for me personally. However, we are on a public forum. There are personal matters involved in all this, so that's why I would like to digress from the questions entirely.
I know, thank you for your answer to that question.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I will not be attacked for asking a question that I feel is warranted, but thank you for your answer. And
Get another question.
And Commissioner Shivers, when I'm speaking, keep your opinion to yourself. Thank you.
Next, Commissioner, who is second? Commissioner Lemon. It is, yeah, so, yeah, Lemon. Okay.
No, I appreciate that, Chair. So, Chief Skinner, you said that, exit interviews are kind of voluntary and haphazard. And I did a deep dive into all of the policies. I actually brought up policy 1015, 1020, and 1028, and none of them really address this. So I really want to know, like, I'm a supervisor as well, right? Very different career field, but I'm a supervisor as well. So were the exit interviews actually conducted as were claimed in the last meeting? How often and how capable are you / EPD supervisors able to do regular one-on-one employee check-ins? And then a brief comment, I mean, like, the email from Officer Cardwell is so concerning. Like, I'm very shocked that you did not come with a presentation, or let alone just some talking points for us to come up with a conversation. So just start off with, I have much more to reserve for later, but thank you.
So let me see if I can pick a few of these off. So I think the exit interview context is more a function of HR. If we really want to get a true, honest, and accurate opinion from an employee that's leaving the organization for a variety of reasons, having them sit down with their current employer, especially in a paramilitary organization with their rank structure, maybe isn't the best environment for that person to feel comfortable speaking their mind. And so I do think that the work that needs to be done around exit interviews and being more consistent with that should be a city function out of HR, so an employee feels like they can go and speak their mind about what they've experienced within our organization or any organization within the city. We are, as far as regular check-ins, I mean, that happens in a variety of different ways, both formally and informally. I mean, there's a lot of connectivity with supervisors, with some work groups. There's some formality around performance reviews for our representative city.
I guess I'm asking about formal reviews that will be documented and in the file.
I'm sorry, say that again, because I was in the middle of a sentence, so I didn't.
Yeah, no, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm asking about formal reviews, not the informal, like
formal. So we have, we're working on, for our non-reps, we're working on from a city's perspective, we're working on formal reviews. And it's really, performance evaluations is a little bit of I've never really met one that I really, really like. This last year is the first year that we've done, it's more around goal setting for employees than it is kind of the, did you meet these metrics type of conversation. What happens for professionals, or what happens for non-represented folks and what happens for our EPA folks are different right now, because EPA has kind of their own set of performance reviews that's happening, and whether or not it's happening as robustly as it should, or we're holding our supervisors accountable to getting those done, I don't know the answer to that. The deputy chief sitting here, and he could maybe say that, but it's kind of not a one size fits all for the formal reviews. So it's probably not happening as well as it should, but we're brand new in this kind of goal setting dialogue, and that would be as close to the formal review as I could say we're doing. And again, this is sworn and professional staff, represented and not non-represented, and we're kind of lumping everybody together, but there's different rules for different work groups. And so it's done that. And then as far as your last question, and then I'll address your comment. I don't know what was specifically said about who got an exit interview and who didn't. I think, if I remember correctly, Officer Cardwell did not have an exit interview, but a different officer did have an exit interview, which then just speaks to the inconsistency in which we're doing this, and maybe speaks to whether somebody is willing to do that since they're voluntary. And then the last thing I'll say to your comment is Officer Cardwell's email, as I read that, it's certainly hard as leader of the organization. It's hard to be reminded of the horrible experience she had when she was a part of EPD. There's no question about that. But there's other, from my perspective, there's some context around that it's not appropriate to talk about in this particular forum, nor am I going to be put in a situation where I'm rebutting what she said, because those are her experiences. And I'm not going to rebut what she said. I'm not going to offer my opinion on where I think she was right or where I think she was wrong. Officer Cardwell has the ability and should be given the ability to go to Springfield if she wants to and have a wildly successful career there. And me speaking specifically, point by point to this email, I think is just not fair to Officer Cardwell because she's not here.
I think she is here. I think she's listening in.
Oh, is she? Okay. Well, then if she wants to, offer her opinion, she's certainly willing to do that during the public comment portion. But I'm not gonna go after the email in this kind of defensive way and bring up different points that should be taken into consideration. Kirsten's a really cool person, and she had a really horrible experience here, and it's something that we don't take lightly, that we want to fix, and we're kind of hopefully working on getting on a path on how we make sure that somebody else doesn't have those same experiences.
Commissioner Hawkins, your hand is up. Make
Yes,
sure,
thanks,
make
Chair.
sure you put your hands down if you're not going to be going. So I'm looking at the hands that are up, and I'm asking them to speak. So if that's down, then Commissioner Dominguez.
Oh, yes.
Well, Chair, my hand was
you
up,
put your
for
hand
sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So it may be a question more for Deputy Chief Adams. Thank you for joining us this evening. But would either of you, Chief Skinner or Deputy Chief Adams, please speak to the statement made by Sergeant Williams regarding the 5 employees who had left for Springfield, and a rather broad statement was made saying that all 5 of them had been fired. It was actually, it didn't sit right because if it's true, I don't necessarily think that's information that needed to be on public record. And if it's not true, then I would appreciate an apology from the sergeant to those officers.
So we've gone back and looked at this, as you can imagine, and I can't tell. I think in the midst of looking at the dialogue, what Sergeant Williams, the question, or at least the information she offered, and what she was trying to communicate, and what was heard, potentially are 2 different things. So there have been no officers that have gone to Springfield that we fired from Eugene. If you get fired from Eugene,
I don't think that was the impression that we received, Chief. The impression, at least that I received, and especially after going back and rewatching the recording, was that they had left EPD for Springfield Police Department and been subsequently fired by Springfield Police Department.
Well,
and I see heads nodding here. Said that's the impression that was received by multiple commissioners.
Well, then my assumption was, so there have been people that have left Eugene PD that have gone to Springfield PD and subsequently been fired from Springfield PD. That is correct. I don't know if it's 5, 4, 3. I don't know. I mean, that's none of our business what Springfield PD did with those employees after they came. When I say us, I mean us as a police department's business. So that is accurate. There are people that have gone to Springfield and subsequently been separated from employment that used to be EPD employees. What I'm afraid potentially happened, and I don't know, is an assumption as that was communicated that there was this assumption or this insinuation that the people that recently have left Eugene to go to Springfield were fired from Eugene. And that's absolutely true. Officer Cardwell was not fired from Eugene PD. The other officers were not. And those are the two officers that left Eugene PD within the last year. They did not leave under the suspicion of any investigation. They left of their own choosing. So I don't know what really prompted whether there was a misunderstanding or not. I don't know what really prompted that, but the truth is it's kind of both. I mean, yes, we've had people leave Eugene, go to Springfield, and subsequently they've been separated from employment over there. But I'm not, honestly, making that statement was not value added at the time based on the conversation. And probably should not have been made. It doesn't add anything to the conversation.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Chief.
Commissioner Dominguez?
Yes, thank you. So with respect to what Commissioner Booker was saying with the question that he asked, I think that it's a good question, and I think I'm not asking you to answer it here, but I do think that a survey, as I said before, and this is going to be like the third time, we need a survey about what is going on over there, and it can't be something that is managed and received by the Eugene Police Department. We are police commissioners. I think that we could handle getting the survey results and processing those ourselves. Like the police, like it shouldn't have to go to the chief. Just as the chief said himself, it's just like you can't ask an officer to critique her boss right there. It has to be like the entire department, both the men and the women there understand what is going on there. They can acknowledge it or not in the survey. Hopefully they'd be honest, and they'd probably be more honest if it was something anonymous, that it was processed by the police commission. So I think that we should have that happen. I noticed in the thing that we approved earlier from the last meeting that it said that it says, excuse me, I requested a copy of the recruitment and retention survey that was mentioned during the presentation. And it says, no, as of this writing, the retention survey is not available to the commission to view as the request is under review by the City of Eugene Attorney's Office. Why in the world that is happening? I don't know why it's there, why it's still there. I never got it. I'm not going to get a chance to see it. But I think that we should be able to do this. I don't know what the holdup would be, but how do we get that survey done? Because I've been saying this, I think I either said it last year too, or the year before that. We need to know what's going on there. And I think an anonymous survey would do well. I think maybe just identifying what the sex is or something like that would be good, because from what I understood, it is a very different experience that women are having versus men there. But also that the men can see it. The other thing is, I don't see why we can't just say or suggest, here's a motion. Please reject it if it needs to be rejected, but I don't think that it should be. Why don't we have the most brief policy, which is exit interviews are required, period. Just exit interviews are required. That's it.
Second.
So my question is, let's open it up for discussion. Yes, go ahead.
So I'm just going to share a personal experience why I think that's a terrible idea. I left a very negative job, a very toxic work experience, and having to talk to my boss or another person involved during a mandatory exit interview would have been, I can't imagine something worse in my life.
I have also, oh, sorry.
So I mean, I don't even know if it's legal to force someone to have an exit interview. That would be like way above my pay grade. But as a personal person, having to re-experience and explain the reason I'm leaving, that was, not very traumatic, like, no, that's not okay for me. And I think there are going to be situations where there are other people in even worse situations that, like they're done, they're ready to move on with their lives, and forcing them to have to like either sit there quietly and not participate, or talk about things they don't want to talk about. I don't know. I'm gonna vote no on this
Okay,
motion.
then I have an alternative, which is actually, I think that's a great point. And I will also say that I came from a very toxic workplace previously. It was terrible, but I was going to voice what I had to say because I thought that the behavior was inappropriate. And I would say, based off of my conversation in the interview, it is my understanding that if she was willing to send an email, she was willing to also do an exit interview, and that exit interview was not offered to her. So then maybe the alternative is that an exit interview is always offered. It is not necessary that they do it, but that they have that option, that must be offered. Because just like in my work position, I wish that nobody would have to go through what I went through at my work. And I would have told anybody that. And I was not offered that either. And I would have liked that. So
Does anybody else, are you, my question is, are you trying to change your motion or
yes.
just something more? Okay, and then my question is, before you change it, you can say change it, but I think there were some hands that were up. Did you want to say something, Commissioner Lemon, to this?
Oh, just a friendly amendment, considering Councilor Ye's advice, that, you know, a neutral party would hear this, not related to EPD, and that the policy should say that an exit review is mandatory from supervisors to be offered, but not mandatory for, you know, the employees to accept.
Commissioner Booker, you had something to say? You need to turn the volume.
Oh, sorry, I was muted.
Oh, no problem.
I agree with Commissioner Dominguez's motion. I know she's gonna change it, but I do think that it should be offered. If they turn it down, so be it. But I think that's how you change the culture and fabric of any work environment, is having honest, open-ended conversation and feedback. So I'm 100% on that, and I feel like had Officer Caldwell got that opportunity, we probably wouldn't be here today. But that didn't happen, so here we are discussing this in an open public forum because it didn't happen. So I wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Dominguez's recommendation for motion, even though I know it's gonna change.
Chief?
So from time to time, I want to obviously close the loop with each one of you as you bring up either questions or concerns, just so that you can hear from me. And it doesn't just be left unsaid. I am 100% from Commissioner Dominguez's perspective. I'm 100% open to inviting people into the organization to ask whatever questions they need to ask, you know, do a cultural audit, ask those questions. I just want you to know that I've been a part of that in the past as a leader where that has happened within an organization. I've actually also been a part of it where I've gone to other organizations to help do this work. So I'm 100% open to that concept. Sometimes a survey is a part of that, sometimes it's not. But just know that whatever the mechanics are around being able to better understand the experiences of all of our employees, I'm 100% all day long going to be open to that happening.
Okay, Commissioner Shivers?
Yeah, thank you. I've got a few thoughts. I'll probably run them in the opposite order of the order they came out in. So as far as an exit interview is concerned, we have a police auditor. I think we've got the vehicles already to do a not in department exit interview. And I think including that in policy is a wise move. I also don't think that anything we put in policy is going to apply to somebody who is quitting, right? So we don't really have to worry about that aspect of, like, we're not trying to force anybody to do the exit interview if they don't want to. The second thing, as far as what was said last meeting in regards to the 4 female officers, there was a bit of stumbling, but what I heard was, other than the 4 female officers that went to Springfield, the other ones have been fired. So there was a little bit of miscommunication there. I don't think it was malicious. I think it was a misstatement out of an intention to avoid denigrating those officers who did go to Springfield, who have not been fired. as far as my first thought, I think the issue here that I'm seeing more than anything else is that we're having a disproportionate number of women who are choosing to leave EPD for a variety of reasons. And my question is, what mechanisms do we have to identify problems before they get to that point, and how can we enhance those mechanisms to enhance our retention, not just of female officers who have left, but for any officers who are leaving? Because I think we're doing a great job so far on recruitment. Not perfect, but I've seen the trends go up in terms of recruitment, and I can tell, like, I can see your focus, Chief, on ensuring that we have a force that mirrors our community. But if we're getting that effort in recruitment undercut in retention, then we're going to be pushing that boulder up the hill forever. So to reiterate the question, how can we intervene before it gets to losing good officers?
So it's an interesting point of clarification. So you use the word disproportionate, which suggests to me that there's some level of data or statistics to support that it's disproportionate. A female officer leaving employment isn't always a bad thing, because you know what? They just finished a 25-year career and retired, and chose to retire and go do something else. I'm sitting right next to one right here who's living her best life right now. So just because somebody exits the organization, remember that there's a variety of reasons why people exit an organization. We have retirements. We have people that have been terminated through a very robust discipline process. We have people that have changed one profession and gone to another profession within the same organization, but they show as leaving the organization. In 2023, we had 23 officers or 23 employees, female employees, leave the organization, and we hired 24 or 25. And so we're not gaining the ground as far as like wanting to add more bodies, because we see that in the male numbers too. We're not gaining ground. We have some people leaving. And as of late, we've had just an unbelievable number of retirements that we're trying to keep up with. So we have to put in context that every time an individual, male or female, leaves the organization, not to make an assumption around why they left the organization, because there's a variety of those reasons. Everybody has their reasons for that. And quite honestly, the majority of our females that have left the organization have been professional staff members, not our sworn staff. And it probably isn't a shock to you that the majority of the men that leave our organization are sworn and not professional, largely because part of our organization that is grabbing these numbers is that we also have a dispatch center, which is predominantly female. And so we have a huge number of female members of the EPD family that work out at dispatch. So there's a variety of things that we want to make sure that we're paying attention to, analyzing, and better understanding when we think about just the sheer numbers of comings and goings, because the goings are some that we wish hadn't gone. That, I mean, Kirsten Cardwell is a great example of that. Retaining her, we missed the mark on trying to retain her, but we also don't want to make the assumption that her experiences were everybody's experience, and that's why they left the organization.
Yeah. So what do we have for identifying, and do we have any ideas for improving that retention?
Well, we do. I mean, retention for people is a variety of things. There's some things that we just can't do that we'll never be able to retain somebody. And some of that is rooted in shift work and the fact that they can't get the right day off pattern, or they're tired of working graveyard. I mean, so there's some mechanics that are just really hard to adjust to meet everybody's needs. Many of our dispatchers, we've lost quite a few dispatchers, for instance, the University of Oregon Police Department and their dispatch center, because all they really offer is a day shift opportunity. And so as a brand new dispatcher, you can go to University of Oregon PD and actually work day shift, which is really good for the family life. When you come to Eugene Police Department as a brand new dispatcher, for instance, and lowest on seniority, usually are working graveyard with not getting weekends off. Same with officers sometimes. It's really tough. So when we think about retention, there's some things that we just are very, very hard to adjust, especially when retention is as valuable as seen through the employee. Different things are important to different employees that would keep them as a part of the organization. On the other side of that, we are constantly creating or receiving feedback on things that we can try to do that make this a destination organization that keep people wanting to be here. And that is across the board from different people's perspectives, what that means for them. In some respects, it's pay and benefits. In other respects, it's development opportunities. In other respects, it's health and wellness types of benefits. So it's a tough one to just say, these are the 2 or 3 things that we should be doing. And culture is a part of that for sure. Kind of overarching all of that is culture. But that's sometimes a tough one to do. But yes, we are constantly evaluating changes that we can make, both policy changes and internal changes. We're evaluating money that we can spend on certain things that help people feel like they're valued here. And then structurally, with our represented groups and our non-represented groups, trying to find ways that we can be more equitable so people feel like they have an opportunity to have work shifts that meet a better kind of work-life balance. So it's a bigger conversation.
And I appreciate the culture comments for sure, Chief. I do think that these 3 females who did leave for Springfield are now officers over there, feel confident in a little bit of talking about it, that a large portion of why they did leave was culture.
Yeah.
So I am super appreciative of, let's address this culture.
It's 2 or 3. I just want to make sure we get the numbers.
So it's 2 sworn officers that were here, 1 CSO.
Oh, the CSO there.
And now we have 3 officers that are over at Springfield.
Okay.
Chief, do you want to speak to the Women Initiative group that you've developed?
Well, I mean, I can, but that's kind of our thing. I mean, I love what we're trying to accomplish. I love the amount of energy that people are putting into it. And I love in the early stages, the way it's being facilitated. I'm hoping it's gonna be super, super valuable, not only for them, but for me and us as a leadership team to hear from them in a more robust way. And it feels deeply personal, to not necessarily, unfortunately, it gets kind of trotted out in open public space, but it's something that we started last summer to try and pull together. And Navasha and I spent a lot of time together in my office talking about how we get to hear from our female employees better. And so it's a little bit early to feel really confident in where it's taking us, but I'd just say in the early stages, I'm happy that our female employees are willing to embrace that opportunity, and hopefully what they're seeing from us as an organization as some intentionality about wanting to be heard. So
I want
Here.
to say something, and then I'm going to go ahead. I believe is your hand up, Commissioner Dominguez?
Yes, it is.
That's good. So it never went down. It was still
It
up?
did not. Yeah, it did
Okay.
not.
So-
It just
so I'm
kind
gonna
of
say
went
something.
away from me, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll just bring it back up.
So I'm going to say something, and then I'm going to move on to you, and then I'm going to go to Commissioner Parham. We're spending a lot of time on this subject matter, but I was going to say something. When I got on the police commission, I didn't need to. Number one, we're not getting paid. So when I got on it, I felt like I wanted to bring someone that looks like me on this commission. So I felt that I wanted to be at the table to talk about often many of the things that we're talking about. Look at our commission. Anyone from the outside would think, what city is this? We have white, we have Asian, we have Hispanic, we have so. But how did that happen? Well, I can tell you right off the bat. When I came across a young man, Dr. Silky Booker, I met him, I befriended him, and I said, you know what? I want this man to join me at the table. And guess what? He thought about it. He did his thing, and all of a sudden he's here. He's not here, and me and him will have to agree on everything, but he's here representing us, and I got him. Did someone pay me for recruitment? So we added, and now it gives me much smile to see Commissioner Parham Then all of a sudden, this young couple comes in. There's an American man and his wife. We talked about what I was doing we're talking about what you do in the community. And all of a sudden she saw something what I was talking about. And now we have Commissioner Hawkins. So if we can be this diverse on the commission, then organizations around this town can look at us as a model. Now listen to this. Commissioner Dominguez has told us she's leaving. I have enough common sense to know that now the Latino community is losing a member of the commission. Plus, Commissioner Mogart is going to be gone. But guess what? Mogart is in charge of the reselection, and I'm on the committee, and so is Senator, and we know where it's at. But we cannot get hammered if no one who's Latino shows up to even interview. What a bad job. Why didn't you bring anyone? Well, what the point is, we as a collective. So I say, have you, Commissioner Dominguez, and I was going to ask Mogart, have you found some other folk within the community when we know that we're hiring? Do you like have know more than I would know to say, would you like to consider being on our commission? Because we can take this back. And another thing is this. I want to make sure that our committee is not the only one dealing with this, because they got the email too. There's a whole nother group. And are you going to be sitting down with their group going an hour or so talking about something that, in my opinion, is not my business? What I signed up for as the police commission was to go over policy and procedures, not delve into who left this, left that. I thought we had resources for that, because at some point there's people in a different pay grade that needs to be dealing with that. We need to stick back to this. So we go back to those questions, but what I'm saying is that that's not our role. And many of us sometimes feel it might be kind of worse. Then I say, then you need to jump on this. This is another train. So that's not us. Let's make sure that we're not lawyers. And another thing is this. The person that we're talking about that sent us the email, she can sue. She has every right to get a lawyer and let her and her lawyers determine, and then they can find an amount. And if something was wrong, then they win. That's the American way of doing this stuff. It's not going to happen at this table. Remember that. So go ahead, Commissioner Dominguez.
Okay, well, as you said, we do policy and procedure. And just as a complete side note, well, not a side note, but kind of with respect to that, I have noticed that the purpose and scope of like this thing, that thing that we always put out, just like what the Eugene Police Commission does, sometime within the past couple years, the word procedure was removed, and I think that should go back in. Just saying, like, I think it's really weird that it was in there before and now it's gone. That should be put back in. You should look into that, because that's kind of weird, because that just kind of cuts in half what it is that you're like as a police commissioner responsible for. So look into that, because that's weird. And then going back to policy. So as I did before, when somebody emails us like this,
correct,
we have to hear it. Like, it's not just the police auditor or whoever else that listens to it, or the civilian review board. We have to listen to it, because from there, that's where the hard part of the police commissioner comes in, where you have to remove the emotional part, yes, but also start to like dissect it and identify where and what this person is saying applies to policy and procedure. Is there a policy that currently applies to what it is that this person is saying? If not, okay, well then it looks like we have to create a policy, much like I was saying with the whole exit interview thing.
Right. And we're not done. Hold on for a second. And we're not done. You put a motion on the table.
Yes.
And then we talked about it, and then we decided you wanted to change it a little bit. And based on kind of what you were changing, it sounded that you and Dr. Booker were on the same page. Are y'all still on that motion? Because if that's the case, that's where we need to be going.
Chair, point of order, Chair. I was the second on that motion.
Okay, no, you were the second, but Dr. Booker was clearly in agreement for what she said. So my question is, before we lose time, let's go back to that motion
Right.
with the verbiage that you want to say, because I think you might have approval. And all we're doing is advising them to do this language. And then we have the chief saying what he said. So go ahead.
I wanted to add something to her motion. That's what I
Go
was
ahead.
getting. And this alluded back to what Chief said our very first meeting when we had, I think, our retreat together. He's about the performance reports. I think the performance reports need to be offered as well, because I don't know if it's mandated. I don't know if it's not, but I know Chief said that they weren't being done like they were supposed to be done, or not on a consistent basis. So we don't know who has performance reports or who doesn't. But I also think that this will also dive into the cultural audit. And a lot can come out in a performance report when you sit down with an employee and talk to them. But if the performance reports aren't being done, like the exit interviews, then there's a whole gap of information and cultural auditing that could be taking place internally that's not being done. And secondly, just to go to my first question earlier, I wanted to make sure that it's understood that question was pertaining to the mental health subcommittee, and the fact that we have, I had access to one retired and one active officer. So I don't normally have access to female officers. I don't know any of them other than the one that is sitting here. So that question was a subcommittee question, but I would like to add to an amend and add performance reports, if that's possible, that those be offered as well if they're on a consistent, regular basis, or if it's that an internal policy that mandated, but if it's not, then some policy around that along with the exit or the exiting interview.
Okay, before we get right back to Commissioner Dominguez, is that something that could be added to that as far as those reports, Chief?
And
Here's where I'm struggling. The road you're going down from a policy perspective, generally speaking, is a city, you're starting to dip your toes in a citywide HR policy recommendation, not a police department policy recommendation. So I would have to think about how we get there. Exit interviews and performance evaluations are
no. I think one of the things they will tell you about this particular chair, because my time's numbered too. So I'm gonna be gone. Is I like to get things done. I like to start playing around. I want to get back to the business, because I don't know who will be next, and then we do it. I believe that you hold on to that notion with the report, so we can delve into that a little bit more. But let's go right back to Commissioner Dominguez, who just tell us what you were changing, because I believe you got a second from Commissioner Lemon already. So go ahead.
Sorry, with a friendly amendment, if I'm not mistaken. So can you please repeat your friendly amendment?
No, your amendment, your motion. Your motion, you brought up the motion. That's what we're trying to.
I know what my motion is. I'm asking Commissioner Lemons what his friendly amendment was.
Oh, I mean, that just came out of discussion. But it was, I guess, the shoot. I mean,
okay,
Dr. Booker would be better.
I'll jog your memory. I just wanted to hear your specific words because they sounded nice. Okay, so basically,
I always live in the sorry.
It's okay. Okay, so an exit interview will always be offered
but not required.
But not required to an exiting employee. Doesn't mean office or whatever, just all 329 people. An exit interview will always be offered.
There we go.
And it's not necessary.
And it's not mandatory.
I'll always be, and because I'm the second and the friendly person, I would say always be offered and adequately staffed by supervisor.
Sergeant Smith, you had your hand up.
I just want to offer that some of this
this motion would not be affected by our policy within the department because there isn't a policy because this is regulated through the Employee Resource Center with the city of Eugene. So perhaps you should probably maybe do some research with the city in regards to what is already in place through the Employee Resource Center and their guidelines. And so before there's something that we can do as a policy for the Eugene Police Department, because if you're affecting the entire employees employed with the whole city of Eugene and how that functions. So there's probably some guidance in the APM and the city employee, the employee handbook are two good places to look to see if these things are covered.
Okay,
so
what I'm saying is that it's not necessary. So I'm not saying that it has to go through the city. So this is information that if the Eugene Police Department is to change its culture, it needs to have this information. I don't know how relevant it is to the city itself, but the police department and the police commission need this information. So I'm saying that like, I don't understand why it would have to go through the city. It doesn't have to apply to the entire city. The police commission has nothing to do with the entire city. We're just trying to do the police commission, the police itself. So I don't understand why we would have to do that. Additionally, as you know, I can't go do that research right now. I am in the middle of a move and I don't know who would take that on. So was that something that you could do maybe?
So
No, time out.
Base it off of that.
We have Counselor Yang.
potentially, I think what Julie's trying to explain is that policies for HR, like we're talking about today, are not department to department. They're like the whole city level, right? The police department would not have a separate policy just for them that only applied to their employees around exit interviews. So my suggestion would be, if you absolutely have to do this tonight, that maybe you are recommending to council, because that is your connection to the city, is the council, to either recommend it to council. I think the better option would be, and I realize this is hard because you won't be here, is to come back and have if you really want to dig into this, have a more educated conversation about what is the situation now? What are the rules now? Maybe they're okay, maybe they're not. We don't really know, right? But if you have to do it tonight, send it to council, because there's nothing Julie can do with it.
I think it is a good example, though, or one good example of maybe kind of how that would work, only because I played a big part in this policy, is like our pregnancy procedure. So while the city and the APM have something to protect pregnant employees, right? Here in the department, we wanted to also supplement that. So it sounds like maybe this is something that could be a supplement to something that already exists in the city. So just, I think that's what Councilor Ye might be talking about, is just researching that stuff first, to have something that supplements within the department.
Okay, yeah, so then it wouldn't be, so I guess I'm just concerned that the process would be slow. It's just like if the city's saying, well, now we have to apply to everybody. I'm like, well, that's gonna slow down what we're gonna do at the police. And clearly there is an issue that's happening right now at the police, and we don't have time to like go wait for the city to like apply that to everybody. At least it just sounds.
That's fair. It took me 2 years for a pregnancy.
Okay, Commissioner Dominguez.
Takes time.
I'm trying my best to help you out before you take off. You repeat, you had the blessing of Commissioner Lemon and Booker just by changing a little word. I would say keep it short and simple to what you're going to say and run with it.
Okay. Let me see if I get it right this first time. Okay, so basically, exit interviews are required to be offered, but are not mandatory to be done. Sorry. And they will be adequately staffed.
There we go. There we go. She has that down. And that was second by Commissioner Lemon. Okay. All those in favor with that amendment, raise your hand. All those opposed, say no. Then it's so amended. Thank you. It has been passed. Your motion has been passed.
Okay, and then so for 1015.3 under selection, I just wanted to say, I think I'm gonna allow other people to talk, but very briefly, under 1015.3 under selection for 1015, you'll see in the second paragraph, the second paragraph, the third, fourth, and fifth, all of them are very nebulous. And I think one of the issues that, as I understand it, why when people are being selected for SWAT team or whatever other team, everything is very nebulous. And it seems like there is a moving target as to what it is that is required for a person to be selected. So when you're a female, it kind of feels like, as far as I understand it, any of these factors could all of a sudden come in and swoop in and eliminate you from the running. So because there is no solidity to this thing, I don't have the words right now for it, but if you all will look into it a little bit more, I think a lot of this has to be cut out or just or adjusted, but it is creating, as the chief said, well, he didn't say this part, but something adjacent to it. But again, this is a moving target that I believe is keeping women out of certain roles. So again, that's 1015.3 under selection.
And I'm sure that Sergeant Julie Smith is here. She heard you, and she can go through that. We can't do it everything before you take off, but she's definitely here. I believe we need to get Commissioner Parham. I'm sorry, we have to go straight to Commissioner Parham. It's time for him to speak.
So Commissioner Dominguez actually brought up a point that I was going to get to, which is selection. And I wanted to ask the chief what language within selection he was actually said the department was willing to work on.
Mm-hmm. So as we think about if really what we're trying to get to is try to be a little bit more equitable in the way we select our employees, regardless of who you are. There's a variety of things as outlined in this policy. There's a variety of things that employees are evaluating. One of the things that I think we can make movement on, much like we've made movement on this when in our hiring panels and specifically our promotional panels within the organization, is, for lack of a better word, kind of who's sitting around the table making this recommendation, who's sitting around the table making the not necessarily the final decision, but at least recommending a decision to whether it's the deputy chief or I to kind of bless the selection. And when it comes to specialty teams, I think there's some work to be done around the environment now, which has asked those specialty teams to kind of do the heavy lifting around the selection process. And when that happens, they have a tendency to also try to staff the selection committee. And so there may be some opportunities to mandate or to require certain people on that selection committee to create a more equitable lens when making those selections. So for instance, in our promotional process now, in our hiring process now, we have a combination in many instances of both internal and external people from the organization and the city. We've had, for instance, Miles Pendleton from at the time from NAACP as a part of it, a healthy mix of both male and female perspectives on the panel. I think there's some work Commissioner Parham to do to create kind of a more equitable number of people sitting around the table to do this. So I think there's some work you can do there around kind of making a motion that would mandate, for lack of a better word, kind of the makeup of the panel when making these selections. Because you're going to need both. You're going to need some subject matter experts, certainly, especially for some of these teams. You need people that know what we're looking for technically. But we also value different perspectives from different people's experiences on what they see in a candidate that maybe I don't see through my lens, and certainly wouldn't see from a lens if it's just everybody that's sitting around the table that's like-minded with the exact same experiences.
Is any civilians on that panel?
Well, when you say that panel, we'd have to qualify which panel you're talking about. So civilians on the panel for promotion and hiring, yes. When we're talking about specialty team, internal to the workings of EPD specialty team, I highly doubt we've ever involved a civilian in that environment. Right. So sometimes downtown is another one. Yes, we had civilians. So I think the answer is yes sometimes, but not always for every selection.
Because
So
I
the
would,
question,
yeah, I would
Yeah,
love
go
to,
ahead.
I would love to help with ideas for your recruiting more Black officers.
And I would like to also just add that if he picks up the phone and says, Dr. Booker, would you be interested in being on this panel when we're reviewing the captain? Are you available?
Oh yeah, I'll make myself
What
available.
is what I'm saying? Because if he asks you and you're not available, we can't come back that next meeting and say, why do we want to look like Dr. Booker on the thing? So I want to make sure that we always look at things two ways now.
Oh yeah,
You know,
as long as city council don't vote me off doing it, because I don't want to.
there we go. There we go.
I don't be on too
So,
many committees.
and just as in this commission, I'm going to end it with here. As strong as Dr. Booker would be looking to make that the right choice, I feel the exact same way that Commissioner Lemon would too. And neither one of those look the same. Because his life experiences and Dr. Booker's life experience in many ways are similar. And both of them are passionate and care, and they look out for other people. I'm proud of this commission. Let's go on to the next question. Commissioner Shiver?
Yeah, if you'll forgive me a potentially tortured metaphor, exit interviews, so I played a lot of soccer. So exit interviews strike me kind of like a goalkeeper, right? If the ball is already at that point, we have already failed. We need, especially when it comes to retention, especially when it comes to issues of sexual harassment, we need strong defense and we need a strong offense. It sounds like, Chief, you're putting together a panel that is supposed to address some of the concerns that women are facing with the department culture, and I really applaud that direction. I'd also like to see yearly performance reviews incorporate, if possible, questions surrounding folks and how they're feeling in the department, where they think we can improve. And I really just want to emphasize that we need to be proactive with this stuff. We can't be waiting until they're already at the box.
Mr. Lemon?
No, thank you. And honestly, most of my stuff was taken care of by Commissioner Dominguez and Commissioner Shivers. Yeah, I like, exit interviews, like not the best thing, but always good to know why they left, even if they're quitting. I think actually that's probably even more important. Is why are you leaving? Question. So Chief Skinners, you said you receive feedback from EPD staff, and not just officers, but all staff. What method do you use? Is culture a part of it? And then, so that's my question. And then the last thing I wanted to say is I am very proud of this commission for forwarding that recommendation to ensure that there is supervisor support, that there is a positive culture, and exit and retention and one-on-one interviews are conducted. So proud of the commission. And Chief Skinner, if you can please give me any advice or insight as to what feedback are you receiving, what method, how, and what questions are you asking? Thank you.
So I'm going to try and answer your question the best I can because I'm a little bit confused. Are you talking specifically with respect to the female employees group that we're
No.
spending some time with, or just?
No, so in your chief comment, you said like you receive regular feedback from employees. Don't quote me on that. I put down you receive feedback on my notes.
Here's the real interesting nuance, and I'll let Navasha absolutely check me on this if she needs to. Yeah, because she knows we got that kind of relationship. So I have this amazing opportunity. So here's one mechanism. I have this amazing opportunity almost every month to stand in front of most members of the organization in service training. And I share with them thoughts that are going on, things that I want them to know about what we're doing, both at the police department and at the city, because I think it's important for us to always know that there's more to this than just our own world here. And then without fail, I always open it up for questions, comments, and I'm oftentimes very, very impressed with the number of people that are willing to ask me really tough questions about things, some of which I have answers for, some of which I don't, and or offer comments that creates that opportunity for feedback. And she will also tell you that there isn't a moment that we have those things that I let them off the hook either. How many times have I stand in front of that room and just stood there quietly until somebody's willing to say something? Because I want to give them, because probably a comment that a person is making, there's many people that are feeling the same way or have the same sense of wanting to ask that question or make that comment. So that's one mechanism, is dialogue. The other mechanism is an open-ended invitation to spend time with me one-on-one that we schedule. And there's people that throughout the almost 6 years I've been here, I've scheduled one-on-one time with me in my office or offsite to just give it to me straight. And I pride myself on having at least a personality that makes it safe to do that, as safe as someone can feel, knowing that I've got 2 stars on and that means something in our world. But I try my very best to show up. Oftentimes it's not in uniform, just so that we can have a dialogue and have that conversation. And then, of course, there's the more formal mechanisms and the more sterile mechanisms around, for instance, a survey, or, what would make your life better? What would make your work-life balance better? What recommendations would you make to the department to really think about policy changes, financial investments? Every 3 years, we negotiate a contract that often the EPEA employees are asked, what do you want in this contract? It's going to make your life better. And they come to the table and negotiate that. And much to the chagrin, maybe, of some people, I'm usually pretty agreeable to trying to get us a yes on some of those things. So it's not an easy answer to say this is the one thing that works the best. I think it's a variety of opportunities that people have to connect with me, for me to hear what's going on with them. And then for me to think about how I can affect change in the organization that's going to make life better. The last thing I'll just say is, not everybody agrees. Not everybody feels the same way about what makes life better. Everybody has their own ideas. And at the end of the day, it's a super difficult needle to thread for me to be the chief for everyone. Because we're talking about 329 right now, 329 individuals with individual ideas of what would make life better for them. And I try my best to try and meet needs, but certainly I'm going to fail from time to time when it comes to that.
Folk, I know we have 2 hands up, but I want 3 hands. But I just want you to know that we're going to be concluding. What's that? Policy 1210. Yeah, public safety. Hold on. Here it is. We're going to be completing policy 1210, public safety cameras, because we're not taking that to the next meeting. And Sergeant Smith is going to be addressing what we talked about last meeting. So whatever you have, Commissioner Dominguez and Commissioner Lemons and Boomer, let's get it straight to the point so we can move on so we get the next step. Go ahead.
Okay, am I next?
Yes, you're next.
Okay. So again, in 1015.3, just wanted to emphasize that it says that you will notify eligible and interested employees of a process to fill in a special team. That suggests that that is something that people are reached out to, not necessarily that it's like an open invitation, which I think is weird. And then the other thing that I wanted to say, again, emphasize, is I think that the police commission should have a survey that specifically goes out that is not necessarily like the managed by the police itself. Also, it is my understanding that there is no female SWAT locker, and I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I heard. And I guess what I'm getting at is, you dress for the job that you want, and if they have no SWAT locker, then how could you ever have a female SWAT officer? Or just like, how does that work? And then, okay, and then also, it is my understanding that a request for a change of sergeant was made by the interviewee. that didn't go through, like they sat in, like they had to live through that for 1.5 years. So I guess like I didn't find any specific policy that addresses how requests for changes happen, but maybe that's what Commissioner Shivers was saying. It's just like, okay, so yes, we're talking about exit interviews, but what is the process of like stopping things before they happen? So maybe this never would have happened if she could have gotten her request processed. So I have no proposal here necessarily because I feel like it's a little bit more complicated, but like
Commissioner Dominguez, do you have a name? I mean, do you have a name? What are we talking about?
I feel weird saying her name, but everybody's been saying her name, so there you go. Officer Kirsten, yes. Anyway, basically she was in there for a year, and for 1.5 years she had experienced this lack of moving her to a different sergeant when she was uncomfortable. So if we could just have a policy in there that like respects a request to, because you're uncomfortable with that sergeant, then that would be good. Again, I feel like that might be, I think like that takes a little bit more. But I think in the future you all should look at that. And then it is also my understanding that there was an external audit that was done. One of the other commissioners had mentioned that there should be an external audit that happens. There was one that was done in 2017 is my understanding. And that there were 5 suggestions that supposedly haven't been met yet. I request that police commissioners receive the audit from 2017. That was an external audit. I don't have the official name of it, but it'd be good for us to look over it, or well, excuse me, the police commissioners to look over. I think I have, oh yeah, and actually my final thing is, I guess what I wonder is, this is probably out of line, but I'm gonna say it real quickly. Basically, if a officer was sexually harassing or harassing their coworkers, I guess I wonder why there isn't a policy that specifically addresses how it is that they're allowed to return and when they're allowed to return. It is my understanding that one of the officers was doing that and they were gonna be returning and for some reason are not now, but like, I guess it's confusing for officers if they're saying, well, so-and-so who was harassing people is gonna come back. This is how we're going to work around this person. Just like, why are they allowed to come back? Anyway, I'm done. Sorry.
No,
So I've got to, I got to make sure that, so your very, very first comment is absolutely not the case. So with respect to special teams announcements, that goes to everybody. Everybody gets that information. It goes on Smart Force. Everybody gets the same pieces of information, understanding what it is, the timelines, qualifications. Everybody that meets those minimum qualifications is afforded an opportunity to put their name in the hat to be selected. So that.
Oh, the policy doesn't say that. So actually it says what I was saying. So that should probably then be fixed. Yeah.
Well, I'll look at the policy. That's the way you make interpret it. What I can tell you is the practice has been and continues to be that everybody gets the opportunity to compete if they meet the minimum qualification.
Okay, so that's in 1015.3, just so you know, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the 5th paragraph, and it does not say that.
10.3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1015.3.
Supervisor in charge of the selection process.
Eligible and interested employees of a process. So you're only notifying eligible and interested employees of the process. It is not the entire group. It is just select few people. And then who's selecting that? I don't know. How do you know who's interested? How do you know who's eligible, or who are you considering to be eligible?
Yep. So your point is well taken, because this policy in 2017, that may have been the practice back then. And now since then, we have moved to a much more robust practice. And so your point is well taken that the policy as written is not currently aligned with the way we do things. And so that will be a change that Julie will.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dominguez. Can I say it again? Thank you. Commissioner Dominguez, you hear this? Thank you. Because that's exactly what we're here for. This is what we are charged to do. So
And again, it comes from hearing.
If we stick to this, and you know what? You're leaving us. We didn't tell you to leave. You're leaving us. And this is the stuff, folks. And you're leaving us. Let us take charge and make sure that we stick to this, because this is what people want us to do. Commissioner Lemon.
Thank you, Chair.
Y'all too, I hate to say this, it's gonna be fast, or we will not.
Yep. And I'm the person to say it to. Absolutely. So essentially, Chief Skinner, all I want to say is, like, I'm a supervisor as well. And, like, we do not intend for these things to happen. We don't hope that these things are going to happen. But there's always room for growth and opportunity in individuals and within systems. So most of my questions were not like particularly answered. I wanted to bring up, barriers and like how uncomfortable someone might feel in an open setting with you and stuff like that. But I'll table that out of respect for the agenda. But really, I'm just coming from a place like I'm a fellow supervisor, very different fields, but we're all here to empower people and help people, and there's always room for growth and change. I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Dr. Booker?
I don't know if it's possible or not, but if the committee is in, I do have a question though, but could we table having another discussion about DEI? Because I have questions pertaining to DEI, and more poignantly, Chief said something earlier about suggesting to his recruitment, suggesting to be more diverse. But in an ideal world, what I would love to hear is him actually say, we need Black officers. Given the bias and hate crime report, we need Black officers. And I wonder, have you discussed the bias and hate crime report with your 329 employees? And if so, how was it addressed? To more poignantly address the need for the Black community to have more protection and awareness in terms of us leading every category statistically.
Right. Yeah, no, that's your
Because
point.
it is disproportionate, and the numbers back it up.
Yeah, for sure. Your point is well taken. I'm at the ready to say we need more Black officers. I need more brown officers. I need more female officers. I need more officers. I mean, I need all hands on deck to serve this community the way that we want to serve this community. There's no question about that. With respect to the hate and bias report, that informs us every year. And remember, the hate and bias report for us is as robust a report as anywhere in the state, because it not only memorializes crimes, hate and bias crimes, but it also memorializes hate and bias incidents that maybe don't rise to the level of crimes that we know affect our community greatly. So we talk about that internally a lot around how we're going to show up for those communities that are suffering from that and are impacted on that, to the tune of being able to say that we specifically assign special investigation unit officers to different marginalized groups to be able to be their liaison within the organization. And we elevate those hate and bias crimes. Those are not investigated. The crimes are not necessarily investigated unless we arrive on scene, we make an arrest, we know. Those crimes are actually elevated to our investigations unit, not just left at the patrol level, because of the importance of connecting with the communities that were affected and the complexity, oftentimes the complexity of the investigation. So I'm not saying that every single one of them goes to SIU, but oftentimes SIU, our special investigation unit, is the one that is asked to take on our hate and bias crimes. So yes, it's discussed a lot within the organization. It's discussed a lot with the leadership team on how we're going to approach these things. We could communicate out every incident of hate and bias to our council, so that we make sure that they're aware of those things. So there's probably some work we can do there. We want to be better about this, but that's kind of some things just off the top of my head.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
Commissioner Lemons alluded earlier to a hate and bias incident with the human rights report that he gave, and hopefully it's addressed the way that the Jewish incident was addressed and followed up on. That's all.
Yeah, that's good. So noted. And I want to say this because I'm forced to say it only because I want to make sure you do realize that this doesn't mean that we don't talk about DEI. DEI is not something that's like we've talked about DEI, we've addressed it. That's something we have on our agenda sometimes every 3 or 4 months. So no, yes. So the answer is yes. The answer to what you're asking about the DEI part, could you bring some of that? Any of your suggestions, all that type of stuff can be brought up again. Yes. So the answer is yes to that. We had Sergeant Smith go over some of the concerns and so forth on the policy 1210 public safety camera. So I'm gonna turn it over to Sergeant Smith, take over, and we have about 10 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, just to kind of reemphasize to you guys that although I sit here and I'm quiet for most of the meetings, I am listening and taking in the essence of what is concerning to you. So during the last review of this policy during the last meeting, there were three main topics that I took away from the meeting and have addressed them either operationally or by adding some language into the policy. So one of the concerns was the signage for the Overwatch cameras. And so I looked at whether or not we addressed this in the policy. It does talk about signage in the policy, but it was clear that that was important. And so operationally, I worked with the deputy chief, and we're going to look at putting the signage at an eye level. And, you know, we can go down a whole rabbit hole about what is eye level to every different individual within our community, but to make sure that there's signage that's conspicuously announces that there is a camera there.
Can I interject real quick, just as a point of clarification? So we're talking about 4 cameras in the downtown. 3 of which are on ornamental light poles, which the city owns. And so we want to be mindful of the aesthetics. Some people will have an issue with the aesthetics. And so that might be a thing. I don't know. It might be a thing, but they're ornamental light poles that they're on. The 4th one is on a building which is private property, but it uses public power there at Kesey Square. And so we may not be able to affect an eye level sign on private property without the property owner's permission. So just know that that's a thing based on what I know today.
Okay, the next item was, we did take a fair amount of time to talk about facial recognition. And so in subsection 1210.6, I added a whole letter C, and it states the EPD public safety cameras will not be used in conjunction with any facial recognition software. And that's under restrictions of use in public notice. So I addressed that, and hopefully that takes in and addresses that concern that you had. And then last concern that we spent quite a bit of time talking in 2 meetings was the data storage to 90 days. I do want to reiterate that if a victim reports a crime and you know, indicates, you know, I think that there's a camera nearby, that is going to be part of the investigation, and that data will be retained and part of the investigation if there is footage there. So there was a suggestion, I incorporated the word rolling as suggested, but there was a suggestion to increase the retention time period from 30 days to 90 days. So I did a little bit of research, and there'll be a pretty substantial fiscal impact to increase the storage for those specific Guardian trailers specifically. But I guess my question is that if a member of the public reports a crime, that footage will be retained already and part of the investigation. I guess I need an example of a situation where a citizen would be concerned that we wouldn't keep the data and it would need to be increased to 90 days. So I didn't see a way. The 30-day retention schedule was based on the recommendation by the city attorney and standard practices or industry standards.
Yeah, it's essentially the Guardian trailers, if that's what we're specifically talking about, or which captures footage, which is a transitory type of document. The state public records retention schedule mandates 30 days of retention. And so in many cases, that's where we start is keeping the retention schedule to at least meet statutory requirements. In this particular case, it's 30 days.
Okay, so having heard Sergeant Julie Smith's changes that we brought up. Commissioner Dominguez, would you like to make a motion since you're not going to be with us? That we do the said changes that Sergeant Smith has put together for us? Did she base them off of what we said the previous meeting? Oh, you got to turn volume. I can't hear you.
I suppose so.
Okay, so do we have a second? We have a second. So based off of Commissioner Dominguez's recommendation that the changes that with the said changes of 1210, with said changes, everything will be updated.
Actually, I'm revoking my second. Sorry.
Okay. So Dr. Booker has a second?
Question. I have a
Yes.
question. I heard her say that it was a recommendation. The mandated is 30, but the recommendation also was 30. So if it's just a recommendation, then you can recommend 90, right? You have to have at least 30. That's the mandate, but you can do 90 if you want.
You can recommend 90. I mean, certainly that's under the commission's purview to make a policy recommendation to move that to a 90-day retention. And then ultimately what I would do is do the work to identify whether the system's capable of doing that, because it's not, I don't think the Guardian trailers are cloud storage based, they're hardware based. So I'd have to check the specs of what we have, and then do a financial analysis. If we can expand it to 90, do a financial analysis of adding the extra storage for as much as those trailers are being used, how much of a financial impact that would be to the budget to have to buy the extra storage for 90 days. So
Understood. So question for my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Lemons, do you think that's sufficient, or were you asking, or do you think more? Because I know this was your baby in terms of wanting to see change. So I want to make sure that were you fine with the 30, or do you think 60?
No, and Julie asked for a reason why. People who
Tell
are
us.
right.
Explain to us about the 90. Why the 90 over 30?
Right. Okay. So, and I appreciate that Julie said that, like anyone who reports being a victim of a crime, like we will retain their records. I do not see that in policy, and I would like to see that written in policy.
I remove my motion, sorry.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So we're taking it off the table. So
is my discussion over with?
It sounds to me, because I'm not staying here at 9 o'clock. It sounds to me that we need some further discussion on 1210, so that between Julie, Dr. Booker, Commissioner Lemons, y'all get together and make sure that we know what we're voting on. Because I haven't even heard what you're talking about as far as 30 or 90. What's the explanation? I thought we would be able to vote, but we're not, because it's 10 minutes. We're gonna be hitting commissioner comments. I'm gonna start off with you, Commissioner Lemon.
Okay, well,
you have opportunity to use.
I thought we were still in discussion. So I rescinded my on the motion, but
and Commissioner Dominguez rescinded hers too.
Yes. So then I would like to make a motion that EPD will not use facial recognition software. Period. That's where we were at last meeting, and
she had that in there.
So but the data storage is completely separate from facial recognition. I think those two motions are completely different, and I think we can table one and we can vote on the facial recognition tonight.
Okay.
So my motion
Would you like me?
He's making a motion. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. My motion is that EPD will not use facial recognition software. Period. End of story.
Is that second?
Second.
No, it's the same thing. Okay, so It's already in the policy, but you know what? If he needs, I guess they want to ump that policy. So he wants to hear it again. So it can get voted down or get approved. So at this stage in the game,
I know we're almost out of time, but Scott, how is yours different from what, like, I don't,
no, because hers is all part of what you're saying that did not include some things that are talking about the 60 and 90 days.
no, he's talking about facial recognition, not 60 and 90. That's the motion on the
Correct.
table. But
He's-
she already read us that it's in there already.
Correct.
Would you like me to read the sentence one more time?
It's within certain policies, not an overarching policy.
No.
He wants to go in a different.
Checked out all of them. There is not
Because
one statement that says
I think
EPD.
the concept here is we're talking about cameras. We're talking about our guardian trailers and cameras and not using facial recognition software in those, which we have put into this policy. And so you can approve that addition in this policy. If Commissioner Lemons is suggesting throughout the entirety of EPD operations, whether it's cameras or not, no facial recognition is going to be used. That's a complete different, that wouldn't sit in this policy. That would sit in a different policy that would govern everything that we do, because it's not just cameras that would do this. We could have a variety of ways that we do facial recognition.
Yeah.
Say that 10 times.
Yeah.
Facial recognition types of software.
Right.
So thank you for clarifying my motion, Chief, but I'm not rescinding it.
Okay,
But
well,
absolutely, I agree with everything you just said, Chief. Like, yes, we will not use facial recognition in body worn cameras. We will not use them in any purview with an EPD.
yeah, Scott, thanks so much. And I would love to have a conversation about that, but I don't know the options that are available to use facial recognition. So I'm not gonna be able to vote yes, because there may be a area where I think it's perfectly acceptable. And since I feel very uneducated, I don't think I don't think I should vote on something I don't understand. I would love to have this discussion next month, maybe. I don't vote for things I don't understand.
No, that's true. And he doesn't. Yeah. So my question is this: would y'all like to take my question is this? You don't have a second at this time.
Yeah, he
So
did.
you wanna wait?
He did get
I'll take a friendly motion to table,
what I'm
but
asking-
you were trying to
what I'm
call it.
What I'm asking is, based off of this discussion that she just said, where she feels that she should be a little bit more educated about this, Holly and I can figure out who we need to bring to the table to talk more about, to have you feel more comfortable. I have no problem with waiting a month. We've waited months for other things. So my question is, y'all want to wait and then we can bring that up next meeting and get it right over with, the exact same thing, and then we're better educated? Does that make more sense?
No, we can vote tonight.
I agree.
So you choose not to have any more discussion about it. Everyone else feels comfortable. So who's giving you a second? Dr. Booker is doing
I
the second.
I second Commissioner Lemons.
Okay, so Commissioner Lemons has made a motion. It's been seconded by Dr. Booker. So the reporter can have it clearly. Can you say it clearly how you want it written?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jared.
Yeah.
So EPD will not use their optical surveillance for any facial recognition purposes.
That's the motion. It's been seconded by Dr. Booker. So I would like to have a vote on it. All those in favor of Commissioner Lemons' motion, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Sorry,
How
so
many
this means that, sorry, just to clarify, this means that in the future that policy could, so kind of, like the counselor, I can see when there might be reasons to use it, and I'm kind of uninformed too. So I guess what I'm wondering is, this is currently, as technology stands, it has faults. So right now what we're saying is that you can't use it because it has faults in it. That doesn't mean that in the future the policy can't be modified if for some reason it became like actually good technology, right? I think that's right. I think I just explained it to myself.
Right.
Okay, yes, I'd say yes, sorry.
Okay, so yeah, we're in 801. So we're on the same page. We have one, Lemons, Dominguez, Booker, Shivers, Hawkins, Parham, did they all say aye? Okay, excuse me.
I did not say aye.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 said aye. Myself, yay, and Hawkins.
Oh, wait, I abstain. I'm sorry. I abstain.
Okay, so now we have 4-4, so we can't move on that. So that's been killed.
Then make a motion to table.
Yeah. So we
Make a
so
motion
my
to accept.
yeah. So first of all, can we make a motion to extend our meeting for 10 minutes?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Whatever. Now, can I tell you a little bit about something? So far, it ain't passing because we was asked for a simple thing, and it made sense to me. I do not disagree with what you said, but I also heard Counselor Ye say she just wants to know a little bit more what we're talking about, which it's not like I really know either. You know, so I would be more comfortable probably to say yay after hearing this information. So that's why I did not have my hand up. I'm just trying to explain to y'all something. So do y'all want to now table that amendment so we can have further discussion, and we will bring that up first thing next meeting so we can get that out the way? Nothing has to change. We just need to hear some information because it didn't pass that the first
I
time.
still look forward to getting out of the way. I make the motion to table.
Thank you. All those in favor table say aye. All those opposed? Okay. Okay. Well, it wasn't defeated, was it? Because it was all, it was a tie. It's enough. So okay, it's gonna be we're gonna talk about it again.
Okay, just for clarification, we're bringing the whole policy to talk about again next meeting.
Yes.
Or, I mean, what Counselor, I mean, what Chairman and Commissioner Lemon said is it's stated in the policy. It says the EPD public safety cameras will not be used in conjunction with any facial recognition, because this policy, this specific policy is dealing with public safety cameras. Now, if we want to talk about all other policies, that's kind of in another, it'd be somewhere else besides this specific policy. So I'm just asking for clarification. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just saying it's in the policy here saying we will not use facial recognition for this policy regarding cameras. So the public safety cameras, the other policies, that's what I'm interpreting that we will talk about later on. Is that correct? Or are we gonna talk about this policy again?
It sounds to me we're gonna be talking about that policy again next.
60-90, thank you.
Just Julie, I know I'm out of order, but yes, like my motion was regarding this policy, but it was more to be expanded to other policies. So please come prepared to have several policies up because I already have them. And you know, so like body worn cameras, all of that stuff. And I really think it's such an easy ask for the police commissioner to say no facial recognition. So that's why my commissioner comments last time were like, I'm surprised we didn't do it this time, but let's do it next time, please.
What we probably won't do, just in all fairness, is we're probably not going to dig through every individual policy and have this repeat itself 40 different times in policies. We'll never get through that work. What we'll look for is a policy that maybe governs our use of technology as a very broad, overarching statement. That we could find a single place in our policy, if we're going to go down this path, find a single place in our policy, in the multitude of policies, that governs our use of technology and simply say, facial recognition technology will not be used in Eugene Police Department operations.
That sounds good to me.
Thank you for restating my motion, and I look forward to talking about it.
Okay, we're fine. Okay, we will begin our closing comments because we're almost out of time. Let's try to keep them brief. Let's start with Commissioner Lemon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually really lucky and privileged to have this spot to speak. So therefore because I'm very disappointed that this email was not included in the record. So I'm going to cede any comments I have for the next meeting and read into the record Officer Cardwell's email. To whom it may concern, I recently watched the Eugene Police Commission meeting that took place on January 11th of 24. I found some statements made during the meeting to be inaccurate and offensive. It was said that exit interviews had been conducted on 3 females that had recently left the agency for Springfield Police Department that did not occur. It was also phrased that 5 officers had gone to Springfield Police Department, had not had success, and had been. It's also not true. In the past approximate 16 years, 11 EPD have left and transferred to SPD, 6 of them being female. To make things more relevant, in the past 18 months, 8 EPD employees have transferred to SPD, 6 of them being female. And to be even more current, in the past 6 months, 6 EPD employees have transferred to SPD, all being female. As a female who recently left the Eugene Police Department and transferred to SPD, I feel like I can speak on the matter and explain why I left. I worked as a patrol officer for EPD from April 2019 through July of 2023. During this time, I experienced a toxic culture of sexism and sexual harassment. Females are not EPD for different, or leaving EPD for different career paths, staffing levels, or Springfield having its own jail. They are leaving because of a toxic workplace that tolerates poor behavior and does not protect or support them. Over the past 18 months, EPD did not lose bad officers. You lost great officers that Springfield now values. One officer that left EPD 8 months ago for SPD is now a major crimes detective, EVO instructor, and an MRT member of Springfield Police Department. Another officer that left 8 months ago for Springfield is now an FTO, PSRT member, and CNT officer, as well as on the bike team. I have been on Springfield Police Department for less than 5 months, and I'm already on the Springfield Police Department street crimes team, and I'm the liaison for a new court program. An EPD CSO supervisor decided she wanted to leave patrol officer instead of applying an EPD where she already worked and where her husband worked. She decided to leave EPD and work for SPD, even though EPD is hiring for entry-level officers. As of December 2023, she now works at SPD. EPD is losing and has lost great officers that represented their city and their department well. I will leave you with this quote: "When things go bad, good people leave," eventually followed by people who thought they could change things, but got buried because of too many good people left. Those left are bad people or hostages. The good people are your canary. I felt that that was very important to be on the public record, and I hope that we are going to be talking about this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ye.
Yeah, I guess I will just say that I appreciate this conversation. Between our time receiving the email, I've had a chance to speak with the chief, speak with our police auditor, to speak with the woman who sent the email, to speak with the city manager. So I can assure you that the situation is being discussed at very high levels at the city of Eugene, and it's being taken very seriously. And while all the aspects may not land in the police commission's lap, I do want to thank people for having a very open and honest conversation about it. And that can sometimes be hard. And I appreciate you all being here and doing that.
Thank you. Commissioner Booker.
Thank you. I I agree with Commissioner Lemon's statement and reading that email. I think it's super important, as well as the fact that I discussed with Vice Chair. This definitely falls under the purview of the subcommittee dealing with mental health. A good thing to know, because I know the chief is big on numbers, is knowing the percentage of male officers that are promoted from a 4-year period. So she was there between 19 and 23. 2019, 23, it'd be good to know the percentage of male officers that were promoted to other positions within that time period, given she was, you know, an exceptional officer of the year. Seems kind of weird that she didn't get more opportunities or promoted, or especially given that there's always a constant need saying that we need officers, we need officers, we need officers. So I digress from that. I will hope that we continue to talk more about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't feel like this is being taken seriously enough, and again, that's my opinion. But especially given the climate and what we are about to experience, knowing that the election is coming up. The last 4 years before this election, many families were destroyed because of what transpired in the White House and who was elected. And that climate trickled down all the way to the city, to where we had riots and whatnot, and police clashing with civilians, etc. To the point where emergency meetings had to be called. We are coming upon that same environment again. And we still have diversity, equity, and inclusion issues that have not been addressed, have not changed, and have not improved. And it needs to be immediately addressed, immediately improved. And I feel like more attention needs to be given, more personnel need to be pushed towards diversity, equity, inclusion. And I found it very troubling. City Council did not take it upon themselves to dive upon the email. I'm pretty sure they saw it, but I do think that more should have been said, especially seeing that we have a council member on police commission, as to the city council's or her, not never, she can't speak for the body, but given that she is a counselor voted by the people to be in that position, her position on receiving an email like this and protecting people when they reach out and address issues like this that have affected them mentally, emotionally, and physically. Again, and this is just a statement considering we did not vote on the camera thing. It was made a statement that more research needs to be done. I get that, but again, as a body, we should be able to vote on things like that. But hopefully, in the future, we can vote cohesively on things like that. But thank you, Chair, for allowing us space to speak and giving us time to talk and get all of our questions answered, even if it means extending the time. This is important. We represent the people, just like city councilmen represent people, and our police force represent people. And I think you said it best. Let our commission be an example of how our police force should look like. And that can become out of your mouth directly, hey, get me these officers, give me Black officers, give me Latino officers, give me Asian officers. You have a pool of where you can fish from to get these kind of officers. So I would hope that we extend that recruiting. But that's all I have to say. Thank you. I'm going to miss you, Commissioner Dominguez. You are a power horse. I mean, powerful force, power horse. You are a powerful force. And I truly appreciate your level of intelligence and your follow through and your tenacity. You are, man, you are the perfect storm. I love hearing you talk. So I'm going to miss you, and you are greatly going to be missed on this commission. And hopefully you can find somebody within the Latino community. You know, me, I share a percentage with you of Latino, my mom being Puerto Rican. So I'm with you. We need more Latino representation. So hopefully you can get more Latinos on, or another Latino to come on and want to be a part of this and represent the community. But thank you so much. Enough can be said for how much of a force you are. And whoever getting you is so lucky. So lucky. But thank you, because you inspire me. And yeah, you give all of us, I would say you give all of us the bravery to speak up and to say what we feel. So keep being that. Don't be afraid of your emotions, because we need that. We should be able to speak openly, freely about how we feel about things without the fear of retribution. So thank you so much for being you, and I'm done.
Okay, now, and I've been to those churches. My dad did long grace, so Of that 10 minutes, y'all have about 2 minutes left. And we're gonna be in that 2 minutes. So any commission, raise your hand if you have a commissioner closing statement. Then we can, but we had to condense it. And I'm not knocking what he said. He said it. I've been to those sermons before. So go ahead. Go ahead, Chairman Hawk. Commissioner Hawk. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair Boggs. I wanted to say that in our position as police commissioners, we've been approved by the commissioners, we've been appointed by the mayor, and duly approved by the city council. Yes, our job is to review policy, but as I've told the Mental Health and Wellness Subcommittee, the other part of our job is to liaise with our community and represent our community and their voices to the police department. So we have taken time, we took 2 full meetings to go over the bylaws of the police commission because one commissioner thought it was important. We've taken 2.5 meetings to go over the guardian trailers for the public safety cameras because it was important to one commissioner who represented a certain body within our community. When 6 of us commissioners say that an email from a former female police officer at EPD needs to be addressed, that should not be taken lightly. So I believe as a commissioner, as a woman, and not just as an Asian, although I appreciate the call out for presenting that face to the police commission as well. I highly, strongly believe that it still falls very much within the purview of the police commission and especially the Mental Health and Wellness Committee, because if any large body of our community feels unsafe, unwelcomed, and stifled in this organization, that we are not here to support that. We're here to root that out and develop whatever policy is necessary to make it a better place.
Commissioner Parham?
No comment at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Shivers?
Yeah, sorry to see you go, Bonnie. And thank you, Scott, for reading out the email. I missed the beginning of this meeting. I assumed that would have been done at the beginning, considering how much context it brings to today's discussion. So thank you for getting that in under the wire.
Okay, do we have any hands up for public comment? Okay, there's no hands up. So I will be closing this meeting.
Oh wait, I didn't have my exit. I didn't have it.
No.
Oh.
If you want to say goodbyes, go there. But we're not going back into the meeting stuff. So.
Oh, I'm not going to the meeting stuff.
I'm gonna give you only because of your time with us. I'm gonna give you 1 minute.
Okay, really quickly. Okay, so mutual aid policy. I'm still on that. It still does not say that any officer that is going to provide mutual aid to the city of Eugene cannot be under investigation. I still think that that's very important. Also, for a different thing, reassignment. So I was talking about reassignment. So creating a policy for reassignment. I don't know what criteria it is for yes or no. But if you have a yes, you should investigate that. If there is a no, like if you're not reassigning an officer, then under that condition, you should speak with the sergeant and separately with the officer and have a conversation. I, again, don't know why you would say no to somebody that's requesting a move, but if you do that, you have to check in with them in 3 months. I'm suggesting that you should check in with them in 3 months and see, are things better after we've spoken? If things are not better, then you have to readjust and maybe actually reassign them. That would have probably helped Officer Cardwell. Okay. Come on.
Okay, and can you do me a favor? We're going to end this meeting, but can you get in contact, and I'm sure he has time, he'll listen, get with Commissioner Dr. Booker, and he'll make sure that the things that you felt like saying are said. And he will give you that because I know him very well.
Just like there's so many things. Okay.
Our meeting is adjourned.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I got you too, Bonnie, and thank you so much for being here.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
We got you, buddy.
All right.